Hello, everybody, and
Everybody.
welcome to the Her Story Online Summit. This is Gertrude Matcha here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And this is day 3 of the summit. We have an amazing lineup of speakers for you today. And my panel, please introduce yourselves. Tell everybody where you are.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time I find you at, wherever you are. My name is Ruth Dengwani. I am in Harare in Zimbabwe, and welcome to our third day.
Hi, my name is Selena Chesha. I'm in the United Kingdom, Birmingham. So, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Your Story.
Fantastic. Ladies, it's wonderful to have you with us today. Really excited to introduce our lineup of speakers. We have a really interesting group of people today, both men and women. We're going to be hearing from quite a few male stories. As you know, we are all encompassing. 25% of our speakers are male, 75% are female. But the first lady who is going to be presenting is coming to us all the way from the United States. Her story is very unique. She was a stay-at-home mom of 4 children and was a homeschool educator. And while she was looking after her kids, she decided to become an author, created her own media company, which was really unique. And so she found a way to look after her children while she worked for herself at home. So, Ayana Murray, thank you so much for contributing your story and sharing your life with us today. We will play her video and then have our fireside chat. Here we go.
Well, I am Ayana Murray, and I am 44. I'm a mother of 4, and I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, and it's sunny outside too. So we're hailing from the beautiful Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm so excited to just be here. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my story. And really, it's a story that I think a lot of women will be able to relate to. And as a mother, I decided that I was going to stay home with my children instead of pursuing a professional career. That was a big choice, a new choice for my family, all expecting me to go on to graduate school and do other things, but decided that this was something that God wanted me to do. So I decided to raise my children at home. And then I used to think homeschool people were really crazy. I felt like that was something that God wanted me to do, and something I said I would never do. And so I not only became a stay-at-home mother, but a homeschool educator as well. And when my children were growing up, as many of us moms do, we love story time with our kids. And I really took on the mantra, the more stories, the better. It develops their language skills, their knowledge skills. And so I would go to the library and check out the maximum number of books. And it would be maybe like 40 books in a week. And I would just do regular story time with my kids. And as I began to be exposed to the authors and the beautiful stories, seeds were planted in me like, I can write stories. And I didn't know exactly what I would write about. Honestly, I tried a few times and and my stories got lost or was on a paper or an old computer, you know, 4 little kids. And my kids were like, I had 4, 3 and under. So I was like in the deep end of the swimming pool when it comes to mothering.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just little time, you know, just always on. And
Yeah.
but these seeds in me were planted to become an author. And I think for a lot of mothers who end up choosing this particular route or are able to do this route, um, they tend to put their dreams aside and aren't
Yes.
fully able to commit to that. But I always knew if I stay home, I need to be connected to the dreams and passions that I have so that my kids can see it, but also so that when it's time for me to do it, I will have been connected. So I was an avid journaler. I would start writing stories. And then it just got so busy. I just really didn't think it was ever going to happen. And I ran into an author at a garage sale. Now we say garage sale. I don't know if in New Zealand you say garage sale or tag
Yes, we
sales.
do.
So I happened to meet this author, and she was a retired author. And she said, you know, this is the time that the industry is really looking for diversity and women of color
Yes.
in particular to join. So she was like, I think you need to start writing now. And so I went back home to New York at the time, and I just started. I had been researching a particular story for a long time, and I just started just putting it on paper,
Right.
real rough. But then,
Yes.
and so just by finishing that story, I was like, okay, well, the next step is to find an agent, you know, because I was wanting to go the traditional route at the time. And
Yes.
there were 2 agents that liked the story. And so I picked one agent. And then it just started just really starting to pick up for me.
Mm.
And you know, the story never actually got acquired. And eventually my agent and I, after a few years, just kind of parted ways because
Right.
it just seemed like we weren't really moving in the same direction anymore.
Yeah.
And, but I just had a passion to write. So I just kept writing and writing. And I said, I know I will be told what path to take, but I'm just going to keep writing. And
Yes.
I just got confident enough, honestly, to say, I'm going to invest in myself and I'm going to publish myself. I don't need to wait anymore. I don't need anyone else to validate whether my stories are good because I know there's an audience and they are my stories to tell. I am
Yes.
responsible to tell my story. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so my first published books was with my daughters, in fact. And I have a new story that I just released about a month ago, and another book that will be released this summer. And I'm just so excited because I'm doing what I know I'm supposed to do. So women out there, do what you are supposed to do, but sometimes it's not your season quite yet, but you still gotta, you know, till the soil, water until it's time for that fruit to grow.
Oh, I
That's my
love
story.
this. Wow. So, as you are developing all of these story ideas, where do the ideas come from? Where does that source of inspiration come from?
Well, oh my gosh, inspiration is everywhere. But
Mm.
I will say one of my secret treasure, like the stories that are in the treasure box, are stories from my family, stories that
Okay.
I've heard my parents talk about, stories that I've heard my grandparents talk about.
Yes.
And it's the personal stories that are the best. But I get inspiration from so many things. And I actually have a notebook that I carry along, and it's like book ideas. And
All
so
right.
there's this organization on Facebook called Story Storm. And every February, they have the challenge of coming up with a new book idea every day of the month.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, and so they always use prompts. things to kind of help spur your imagination. And I do that every
Right.
year. And I have a book of about 200 book ideas. So
Oh
I'm
my
good.
gosh. That is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. So you sometimes have to put yourself in a position where you're working with other creatives as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, see, that would be awesome, but I'm at home with my 4 kids.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm not really out and about that much, but it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter because, like I said, stories are
They're
everywhere. I mean,
everywhere.
if you, it's kind of like when you purchase a new car and then you
Mm-hmm.
see that everybody has that new car all of a
Yes.
sudden.
You
That's
start
how it is.
seeing it everywhere.
That's how it is with, if you have your story antennas up, I'm always writing like, oh, that'll be a good story.
All right. So let me ask you this. If you were to talk to someone who is sitting on the edge, they think they have an idea, they're not sure, based on what life has taught you to get to this point, and you could go back and talk to that younger you, that young woman who started off on this journey, what 3 nuggets of wisdom would you share with her?
Start writing now. So you might not think that you're going to be able to get it out into the world, and that's okay. You need to start writing now. Because I have so many stories I wrote 6 years ago. They're going to come out, but
Yeah.
it's just a matter of time. So start
Time.
writing
Yeah.
now. Start developing that skill. So like you said, get around, if there are writing groups, I have a critique group that critiques if my stories are good. So I get
Right.
feedback from my story. They're like, maybe you should write it from the third perspective or the first person perspective. So you do need to get around people who are doing what you want to do,
Yes.
so that you can develop your craft. And then also just read. And the stories you really love, like take notes. So I have another book that that I collect words and phrases, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I just want to collect it and just put it there so I can capture it. And sometimes what I could do is flip through and I'll be like, oh, I want to use this word in what I'm trying to do in my story. So, the inspiration is everywhere, but start now. You never know what's going to happen, and record it. So,
Oh, that's absolutely lovely. And if you were to now go into your future, the kids have grown up, the 100-year-old you is sitting in a rocking chair reflecting back on your life, based on how you've lived your life, what would you say to that woman?
so I'm speaking to the future me.
It's speaking to the future you, yes.
I would just, let's see, wow, okay. I would just want to be proud that I didn't leave anything on the table. I always tell my kids, don't let fear paralyze you from doing what you know you need to do. So I'm
Yes.
thinking if I keep living that philosophy, I will be looking proudly at that 100-year-old, me, saying she did what she was assigned to do.
Yeah.
And she loved the people tremendously that were put in her path, and she gave her all. She laid it on the floor. And yeah, so I think I would be proud if I continue to live out my values that I have now.
That is so inspiring. There's a lot of young moms at the moment as well who are staying at home, kids are at home, having to juggle and find ways, one, to make an income, one, to look after their kids. How are you coping with COVID?
Well, you're right. I mean, it's a tough time, and it's a tough time to be at home. And I'm used to being at home, but I'm not used to being at home like this, for people that are living in places that are a little bit more strict. My friends are my lifeline. So I just make sure that I'm connecting. And for people that are able to get out, um, it's important to get out, even if it's
Yeah.
just to take a walk. But now people are able to connect with their family and friends, more. And so I would say,
Yeah.
yes, do it. I mean, I think we're all feeling a little dry when it comes to connecting. And
Mm-hmm.
it is important for our survival because as mothers, we give and give and give. And if we're
Yeah.
shriveling up, boy, we're not good. It's going to impact the entire household.
There's nothing
So
much left to give.
nothing much to give. You're right. So we have to reboot. We have to, really be in tune with our emotional selves, our internal thinking. And, I started adding on meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Got my prayer journal. Like, really, what are the things that water your soul and connect to that?
Yeah, yeah, you're so right. So where can people get your books? Are they available on Amazon, your website?
Yes, right now you can type in Ayana Murray and in Amazon and my books will come up. You can go to ayanamurray.com and
Okay.
there's a way to purchase the books there. And currently I'm writing for children, but I do have, just like you, I want to write film and do screenplays. So I am just wanting to learn what you've already done, but I'm excited about the power of the pen, and that's
Yeah.
what I named my company, is that it just has the power. If you can just write, you can write articles like you're doing magazines, you can do film, TV. So if us women really see our own power, we can really influence the world.
Yeah. And I think the beautiful thing about the way you're living your life is the ripple effect it's going to have on your kids.
It's great that you said that because my
Mm.
daughter Anaya, we co-wrote the book, Bear Learns to Share, and my eldest daughter did all the illustrations.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
since then, my daughter Anaya, she has written a play, a musical that has won some awards, and she is launching her own book line, and she'll have her first solo project out this summer. So you are so right.
Oh, wow. That is just so beautiful to hear. Well,
Yeah,
congratulations. You are a good role model.
thank you so
Definitely
much.
impacted on your children. They've seen the gifts that they have passed
Yes.
on from yours truly. That is fantastic.
As mothers, we're just trying to cultivate, right? I feel like
Yes.
God sent us these children. They come with all the gifts, that they have, and we're just discovering them as mothers and just
Yeah.
pushing them toward their way. So thank
Oh.
you.
Thank you so much for this amazing interview. I'm really excited to have you as part of our community. I
Yes,
look
thank
forward to
you.
having you maybe come and run a workshop, a creative workshop with our community as well. Empower other young moms to do what you've done.
Yeah.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Her Story Circle has a way of attracting some fascinating women. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Have a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. I am muted. I keep forgetting. Welcome, 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 ladies.
Oh, hi.
Wonderful to see you again this morning. And just introduce yourself. Tell everybody where you are. Miss
Hi.
Mary.
Hello, ladies. How
Let
you
everybody
doing?
know where you are in the world, Miss Mary.
Oh, hello, people. I'm in Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas. So we have the UK, Dallas, Zimbabwe, Melbourne, Australia in the house.
Yeah.
So Ayana's story is fascinating. I know there's a few writers in the room at the moment. We'll start with you, Selena. What feedback can you give Ayana?
No, I think she's an amazing mom, a role model. Because sometimes when when you say I'm going to look after my children, you don't know what to
That's,
do.
yeah.
You just, like sometimes that's when people put on weight, they get into depression. The children are so stressing, and all the things, waiting for the husband to come home, for the children to come home, cook, clean, and routine is just monotonous. But she found a way of keeping herself busy, entertaining herself, doing something that she loves doing. And now that she wrote a book, I mean, her daughter is also doing her own thing in line with her. Oh goodness me. That's like, I think every mother hopes to do something with their kids. Just even if it's just a small thing with your son, with your daughter, it's just amazing. It gives you a good feeling. But now when she has imparted that and the girl is going on to, launching her own stuff. Wow.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. That was really good, Marianne.
Miss Mary, what
Hi, hey,
feedback can
hey.
you give Ayana?
I missed most of her story. When I was getting ready to get on, I had so many phone calls, my doctors and stuff, so I'm late. Forgive me for being late. But did hear the part where she's writing. She writes books, and I want to tell you guys. I said yesterday that I wasn't writing anything, but I forgot. I'm working on this family project. Let me show you the book.
Move it to the side. Oh, yeah, there we go.
The
The
story
story.
of love between Mabel and Chat. That is
Okay.
my mother and father. This is a hardback book. So what I did, I'm the keeper, I'm the storyteller in the family, and I have all these pictures, even my grandmother, great grandmother, and her graduation pictures. There's tons of pictures. And sometimes the younger people will say, "You have a picture of great grandma, who." And I said, when I die, I want these people to have the story of the family. So what I'm doing is telling the story what I know about them,
Oh,
grandmothers, sisters, and all of that. And this is just for family members. And the pictures are, I mean, when you look at it, you say, "Wow, look at that, the black and whites." So it's gonna be just for them, and that way they don't have to worry about the pictures and the story. So that's my next project. I'm taking my time, but they are slow to give me the pictures that I want from them. But I'm just gonna get the pictures out of Facebook and pin them in the book. If they don't like it, too
yes.
bad.
That's
So
a beautiful way.
that's what.
That's the oral history you're curating there. The stories that
Yeah.
are
Okay.
passed down just through the family. But being able to capture
Uh-huh.
all of that. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I found a picture of myself when I was probably 5 or 6, playing with the dogs in the yard in Bari. Ruth and Selena,
Yeah.
we used to live in Bari. And my dad used to keep these Dobermans. We had these big black dogs. We had like 5 of these Dobermans. And they were
Oh
so
gosh.
vicious and gentle with us as children. And I remember yesterday thinking, I need to put this picture somewhere where my grandson can see his grandmother at the age of 6. Now it's
Oh
becoming more
man.
important for me to capture that. I
Yeah,
love
and
it.
think about Matita. Think about your grandson Matita. He gets old and he's grown. He'll say, "I wonder what
Yes.
my great grandmother looked like," and you'll have this in a
Yes.
book for them. I'm really
Yeah, no,
enjoying it.
that's a beautiful idea. Thank you for sharing that, Miss Mary.
Yeah.
Miss Ruth.
Hmm.
I like the fact that Ayana has got a book where she keeps her ideas and she uses her family stories as inspiration. And of course, that's also a way of passing on our family stories, Um, and she's doing exactly that. And now her daughter is going to publish a book. Wow. And she really looks like she loves doing what she's doing, eh? She's glowing,
Yeah.
she's happy when she talks about her projects. You can just see she's beaming. I love it. And
It's
she's a very good
fantastic.
role model for her children. Yeah.
That's good.
Absolutely awesome. So, Miss Ruth, you're going to introduce our next speaker. coming from South
Yes.
Africa.
Yes. So our next speaker is Kibo Nemurena Ndite. She's called Kibone. With a career in IT spanning more than 25 years, Kibone has led age teams and large-scale projects of up to 100 million rand, working across various industries such as insurance, telecoms, healthcare, transport, and government. Additionally, she's an actor and public speaker, a storyteller who inspires others to take responsibility for their own lives and happiness. Through the power of storytelling and authenticity, Kibone creates a safe space for women to own their truth and live their best life. Kibone founded Purposeful Living, an organization focused on providing women with the tools they need to live a purposeful life. He organizes transformational events that aim at creating a platform where women from all walks of life can come together to have meaningful conversations about life, love, spirituality, and purpose. The ability to combine her business experience, project management skills, and ministry keeps her on the leading edge in both her personal and business path. She's also a single mom who has raised two amazing men. Ladies and gentlemen, Kibori.
Thank you, Miss Ruth.
Thank you, Gertrude.
Hi everybody, my name is Kiboni Morena Ntite. You can call me Kiboni for short. I am in South Africa, beautiful South Africa in Cape Town. I am 53 years old. I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm an author, I am a storyteller, I'm a speaker, I'm a mentor, all that in one person. So I mention that I was 53 years old?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so I have just written a book, and the book is titled I Am More Than Enough. So I struggled a lot with identity issues. I grew up in a very abusive home, in a very abusive space, and I was always told who to be, what to be, how to speak, what not to speak. And as such, when I grew up as a young lady, I had dreams, but my dreams, I couldn't share them with anybody. My main dream, I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to be a speaker. No, I didn't know I wanted to be a speaker. I had a plan of, okay, now since I have this need to travel the world, how am I gonna do it? And I decided I wanted to be a pilot. And my dream and my goal was to be the first Black female pilot in South Africa. But because of apartheid, I couldn't reach that dream. So I ended up being in the corporate space. I knew from a young age that I didn't want to be in the corporate space because I wasn't designed that way. But I ended up in the corporate space, defying my father who wanted me to be a medical doctor. I was adamant I was going to do something different. So I went for IT, and I just went into it only for money, because I remember in our career guidance class, our teacher went through a whole lot of careers that you can take, and when it came to IT, he said the money is good. So I decided, well, if I can have my dream, let me go for the money. And that put me straight into the corporate space, and that was very challenging for me because I was built differently. I'm a free spirit, I'm a speaker, I'm a thinker, and and the corporate world was just very stiff for me. I encountered patriarchy, I encountered sexism, and it was tough. And when I entered the working space, women were not in the forefront yet. I know it's changing, but still, but that time it was worse. Women were not in the forefront. If you were outspoken, you were targeted, or you were told you're cheeky, or you're aggressive. And I went through that. I remember at my second job, my boss, it was a Christmas party, and my boss was telling, we brought our spouses, and my boss was telling my then husband that your wife is cheeky. And my husband was shocked and felt very embarrassed. When we got home, he wasn't impressed. He said, I don't like it when people say my wife is cheeky. And I had to explain to him that, in the corporate space, there's no man or woman, we equals, and I have to stand up for myself, and I have to speak out, and I have to put my point across for what I believe. But this went through. There are companies that fired me because of my outspokenness. But with that also came trying to fit in. Eventually you think, maybe it's me, maybe I'm a troublemaker. Maybe I should change, and I tried to change myself. But the more I changed myself, the more I realized that I was losing myself, and eventually I just didn't recognize myself anymore. And I decided after a while to take a deep introspection and look at myself, and decide who I'm going to be and who I want to be. So that took me into a journey of trying to find out what inspires me, what lights up my fire, because I knew that the corporate space, just killed me. I was dying inside, and the pain of this death was becoming unbearable. So I decided to do this introspection. I went on a journey, on a spiritual journey, and my spiritual journey led me to church. Although I was already active in church, but my spiritual journey led me to the forefront. So I ended up coincidentally on the pulpit, preaching and ministering to people and praying for people. And that went on for a while. And when I looked at that, I realized that gave me some sort of fulfillment. So I decided to look more into that. I knew also, even then, even with that I don't want to lead a church. I'm not made to lead a church. I don't have the heart to 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 shepherd people as the church says it. So I decided, my heart is outside the church. I wanna make a difference outside the church. And I decided to look at, like, what can I use? Looking at myself, when I put myself out there, what would I be doing? What kind of impact do I want to make? What kind of difference do I want to make? And I started to look at the preaching, and I asked myself, what is it about preaching that I like? And I realized that preaching, it's mainly speaking. So if I can take the speaking outside, then I can do that. Also at that time, remembered that I have another gift, which is writing. I didn't realize that writing was my gift. I thought if I can write, everybody can write. I didn't realize that it's special. It's something that I should cherish, because when I grew up, there were no writers around me. Nobody, I couldn't see anybody that had writing as a career, or as something that you can do for a living. So, but then I realized that I do have a gift, and it's writing. And I remember that I always wanted to write a book. And I went on a mission to put my story in a book, and I wrote a book. The book had been inside me for years. I always wanted to write a book, but I didn't know. And I tried before to write a book, but I got stuck. But this time, like when COVID started, I decided, with these lockdowns, let me sit and write the book. So I wrote the book, I finished the book, it was edited. We are now putting it on Amazon. And I think in the next month, it will be ready, going to print and publishing. So that's my story. And now my passion is to help others to find their fire, those that are struggling like me, those that say, I am here, but I know I don't belong here. I'm in the corporate space, but I know I don't belong here. So my passion is to help those women, especially women, to say, if I can do it, you can do it. And it's never too late. At 53, I just finished writing my book. And I know the best is yet to come. When I turned 50, I thought, my life was over. I'm old. I should write myself off. There's nothing more to do. I missed my chance, But I know that this is the beginning of the best of my life yet to come. And I want to encourage women that even those women that think it's too late, it's never too late. It's never too late. You can still do it. You can still live your dream. And we can do it together. When I live my dream, you can live your dream with me. That's my
Wow. What a story. Your life and my life kind of parallel each other. I think I told you I studied in South Africa,
yeah.
in Cape Town at the University of Western Cape. And when I graduated, I found myself in the same kind of space.
Okay.
For those of you who don't know, South Africa during the apartheid years had a classification of races. And the rating system was that 01 was a white male, 02 white female, 03 colored male, 04 colored female, 05 Indian male, 06 Indian female, 07 black male, and 08 was the black female. So black women were at the bottom of the totem pole. And like you, I experienced such hardships. I was in an IT team, and we would be having tea and coffee at a meeting, and my boss would look to me and say, Gertrude, it's time for tea and coffee, kind of implying that I had to get up and go make tea for everyone. And I remember at the time, because of the classification of races, the only job a black woman could have was as a maid or somebody who looks after the children. So just the level of respect was just atrocious, And I used to turn it into a game when he did that. I would cross my legs and I'll say, yes, Jack, I take mine black with 2 sugars. And I would laugh. So I can so relate to, where you were in the corporate world in South Africa at that time. It wasn't easy. And Black women have had to fight for their space, to assert themselves in these roles in the corporate world in South Africa. So I'm really glad that you hung in there as long as you did, because you kind of paved the way for others. And now you are on a fantastic new journey in a completely different direction.
Yes, definitely.
So if I could ask you a question, if you could go back to that younger woman struggling in that position, experiencing these imbalanced attitudes, what 3 pieces of advice would you give her?
I would say to that young woman Do not reduce yourself to make other people feel comfortable around you. That's the first advice. Don't sell yourself short, belittling yourself, so that people can feel okay around you. I know I did that a lot. Secondly, I would say know your worth and never be apologetic about your worth and about who you are, you know.
Yes.
And thirdly, I would say um, never back down. If you've got, if you feel that you've got a point and you need to stand by it, never back down, no matter the consequences. You might end up getting fired. I got fired like twice or three times.
Oh, wow.
But never back down, you know,
Yeah.
rather be with your head held up high than compromise who you are.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is awesome. So now let's go into your future. You have now moved into a completely new world
Yes.
as a speaker, as an author.
Mm.
If you were to have a conversation with the older you, when you are 100 years old and you're sitting in your rocking chair with your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, based on how you're living your life, what would you say to this amazing woman who led you to that point?
I would say to myself, to my younger self, you are okay. No matter what happened to you, you are okay. Don't look back and don't be too hard on yourself. The journey is not in a straight line. There's twists and curves and turns, and sometimes you go back before you move forward. So don't be hard on yourself, and embrace every bit of yourself. Love yourself, embrace every bit of yourself, celebrate yourself, um, and go for what you want and forget about everything else.
Welcome back, ladies.
Yes, sorry about that. I was just trying to get hold of our next speaker. Eugene didn't have the link.
Oh, and I responded to him. My apologies.
Okay, so just take over for a minute and chair the room. I just need to
All right.
take this call.
So, thank you, Gertrude. So, Kibone is an author and a speaker, and she talks about how we lose our self identity over time, and we die inside as we conform to society or to systems, dictations, and we forget our dreams. But she talks about the unbearable pain that she had inside, and she felt like she was dying, and she had to do something and get back to her dreams. Ladies, I don't know if you have any feedback for her. She's going to publish a book, so congratulations, Kibone, on that. And one of the things that she said is age is nothing, it's never too late.
Of
So even
course.
at that age, you can leave that dream. You can still achieve that which you wanted. You've been dreaming of. Yes, Selena, you have something to say?
And I'm just saying, yeah, age is just but a number. And then it's like you live the age you want. I can decide to be a 20-year-old and I know I can do it. So I think she's really powerful. And then the way she, she says, I went into preaching. It's
Mm.
like that's a common thing for Africans sometimes. Mostly they want, oh, okay, I've got a brother who says, Selena, you love talking. Why don't you become a preacher? Then we can make money. And I
Why
said,
don't you
oh,
start a church?
yeah, I says, let's start a church. People are, churches are blooming. They're just coming here and there. So why don't you start ours? Because you love the Lord so much. You're always in prayer. You're always doing this. And I said, I
Mm.
wouldn't do it for money. If I have to do it, I have it for the service of the Lord. So then she found that okay, she was doing it with the wrong intention,
Wrong
and she
way.
moved
Yeah.
out again and say, yeah. I mean, she seems that she never has any fear of change, and
Mm.
it's like
Mm.
that's really what spoke to me. It was like my younger me. I can say, okay, I can do this. I mean, I don't have to fear. I mean, I don't have any money, but I can do this. So
Yeah, and
well
she
done, you.
yeah,
Yeah,
and she's 53 and on a new journey. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Truly amazing. Mary, your feedback for Kiboni. Truly amazing. Mary, your feedback for Kiboni.
Welcome, Eugene.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We're just
Good.
discussing the last speaker, going around the room, giving some comments.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We're
Yes,
hearing an
we can.
echo. Can you hear that? Going around the room, giving some comments.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Is it just me or is there an echo now?
Yeah, there's an echo.
There is an echo.
Okay, so if you guys mute yourselves, let's try and figure out where it's coming from. Just me or is there an echo now? Okay. Eugene, unmute and just say something so we can clear the echo.
Hello.
Okay. Okay, no, it's not coming from you. Mary, can you unmute?
Yeah, let me try again.
It's not coming from Mary. So there's an echo from somewhere. We'll just make sure that if we're not speaking, we make sure that
Muted.
we're muted. Yeah. So I think we were asking for Mary's feedback from the last speaker. So Miss Mary, just unmute. Now you're muted still. You're muted, Miss Mary. Unmute yourself. There we go.
Can you hear?
Now we can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
So
The
what
echo is not as bad,
speaker?
but I hear music and people talking.
It's disappeared now. We can't hear it.
Okay. Well,
There was
I'll just
definitely
listen.
something
Okay.
not quite right.
Keep me muted, and I'll just listen. Okay.
Okay. All
All
right.
right. You
So
did. Yeah.
my take on that last speaker, like I said, I could so relate to the situation she was in working in apartheid South Africa. I lived in Cape Town for 7 years before I moved to New Zealand, and can really relate to the racism. Her experience really mirrors what was my life in Cape Town at the time. Being employed in the corporate world in Cape Town, being treated differently because I was a Black female. So I was really happy that she brought that to the fore, and she was able in her life to really transcend the challenges that she felt while she was working in a post apartheid South Africa and succeed in the corporate world in that sense. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Now, as you know, we have been on a quest to try and attract more men to come into our space and to share their stories. And I'm not even sure how Eugene and I were connected. It was something very, very organic that happened. I think through a friend's introduction. Eugene, I hope I'm going to pronounce your surname right. Pizzolato
Yeah,
is,
that's good.
am I correct?
That's good.
He is based here in Australia. I've had the pleasure of meeting him for the first time when I came to Melbourne to visit my daughter. And we actually did an amazing photo shoot last week to get his branding out there. But he is the creator of the Human Experience Compass, a tool that helps people navigate through challenging times. He is a strategic, innovative senior executive, a coach, a facilitator with a proven track history in staff engagement and empowerment across all business critical functions, with an ability to create empowered, passionate teams which deliver outstanding customer service, revenue, and profit targets. So it gives me great pleasure to have you here today, Eugene. My apologies again for the link. We actually thought the link had gone out. Obviously, we dropped the ball there. So my sincere apologies for that. I'm glad you emailed me and I checked my emails. So we're going to play your video and then we will come back and have a fireside chat where we will discuss your video, ask you questions, and give you feedback. So
Beautiful.
here we go.
Hello, my name is Eugene Pizzolato. I'm 58 and live in Melbourne, Australia. Have you ever asked, where does limiting beliefs, fear, self-doubt, procrastination, feeling not good enough, not worthy, or feeling like you don't belong, have you ever asked where these feelings come from? I believe if your needs were not met, your development not provided, and you had some challenging experiences in your early developmental stages, then your feelings, thoughts, and behaviors will reflect this. What you see, hear, and how you were touched creates how you feel, think, and behave, either positively or negatively. Carl Jung said, I must face the dark to find the light. Jesus said, when you give rise to that which is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not give rise to it, what you do not will destroy you. I say your life can be whatever you want it to be. All you need is the courage to look within and then act on what you find. I found the courage to look within, and then I acted on what I found. My story started in 1930. My grandmother fell pregnant out of wedlock with my father. She projected her shame, embarrassment, and humiliation that the community projected onto her, onto my father. When my father was 22 years old, he went and worked in the mines in Belgium. He said to his mum, I'll send all the money back to you, use half the money for yourself and the family, and save the other half for my return. 3 years later, after working 7 days per week, he returns and asks for his money. His mother responds by saying, how dare you even think you can ask? You're an embarrassment to this family. Wish I never had you. There is no money. My father was heartbroken, felt rejected, humiliated, and out of anger, bought a one-way ticket to Australia. My father was punished for something he had no control over. He was humiliated, rejected, abandoned, and a serious injustice was done towards him. He had no right of reply, and nothing he could do can change how his mother felt about him. There's something here around being punished for something which is not your fault, yet you are blamed, rejected, and humiliated. I believe this is why some people can never show empathy. Meanwhile, in the other side of the country, in Sicily, Italy, my mum was being abused by her grandfather and father. My mother met my father through a dating agency and was so desperate to leave her home. After 2.5 years writing to my dad, she buys a one-way ticket to travel to a country she'd never been to marry a man she'd never met. My mum arrived in Melbourne on Boxing Day 1960. Her first night in the land of opportunity, she rolls over and cries herself to sleep. History had repeated itself. She cried as they had sex out of wedlock. What is not healed is passed on, and the generational cycle continues. When I was 4 years old, I get out of bed and I'm looking for my mum. Can't find her anywhere. Mama, mama. I found her laying on the bedroom floor unconscious with an empty pill bottle beside her. I call out, mama, mama. I try and shake her, wake up. Exhausted, I finally fell asleep on her. This was the second time my mum had tried to take her life. The time I was 6, the voices in my mum's head started to take control. She would ask me to comfort her when she was scared. My mum was a religious woman. She would pray daily. The voices were telling her that we're all going to die via the flood or drowning, as in the story in the Bible. I couldn't swim, you see. I believed I was going to drown. I was so scared that I would build boxes around my bed, thinking that that would stop the water from drowning me at night time. When I was 10 years old, can you remember when you were 10? Can you remember the first ever school camp that you ever went on? I was so excited. I asked my mum if I could go on the school camp. My mum said, no, you can't go. I'm scared that you will hurt yourself. I pleaded to her, please mum, all the kids are going. I'll be okay, please. She said, no, you can't go. So I wait to ask my father. So I asked my father thinking he would say yes. I asked and he only had one question for me. He said, did it cost money? I said, yes, it does, Dad. He said, sorry, we can't afford it. You can't go. Imagine missing over 60% of your schooling to care for your paranoid schizophrenic mother. You have a chance to go on a school camp, a chance to have fun, have some new experiences, maybe even make a friend. I can remember going to school after the camp. The children were sharing the experiences they'd had, the new friendships that were made, the fun that they shared. What could I say that would make me part of the conversation? I felt lost, alone. I felt like I didn't belong. When I was 15 years old, my father pushed my mum off a set of stairs. I was old enough now, couldn't let this happen anymore. Grabbed my father, threw him up against the wall and said, that is the last time you will ever hurt my mother. Moments later, he comes out holding a 12-inch knife. I remember looking at my father and believing that he would stop, that he would not hurt me. Have you ever felt that level of certainty? So I stood there. Before I could take my next breath, he strikes the knife at my heart, cutting my chest as I fall to the ground. He strikes again and again. He was unrelenting. As I look up at my father, my mind could not comprehend what was happening. My certainty turned to fear, then terror. I thought I was about to die at the hands of my father. I somehow managed to get away and get the police. 8 to 10 years jail for attempted murder, they said. As the police handcuffed my father to the bed, my mum led me to the other room and said, Eugene, you will not charge Dad with attempted murder. I was never more lost than in that moment. I don't know what took more of my life, my dad trying to kill me, my mum supporting him, or the police and the system doing nothing. My inner star stopped shining that day. That day I took on the belief that if I stand up for what I believe in, I will die. I'm not worthy of being supported, and that I'll be abandoned no matter what I do. I missed over 60% of my schooling to care for my paranoid schizophrenic mother between the ages of 4 to 16, never having one friend in that time. I witnessed my mother trying to take her life 7 times. The first time was when she was 7 months pregnant with me. We moved 13 times in my first 13 years of life. The police knew that my father tried to kill me and they did nothing. The mental health system knew that my mum was being violated, as I told them when I was 12, and they did nothing. The school complained because I missed so much schooling and said in my report, if I came to school and was serious, I could do well. Someone told me everything will be okay, Eugene, when I turn 18, as I'll be an adult. I believed that something would happen when I was turned 18, so I was looking forward to it. The night before my 18th birthday, I was excited at what was to happen the following day. The day came, I kept looking outside my window to see who was coming. Was some knowledge coming, some information? I was an adult now, but no one came. I was so confused and I felt so stupid. How can an alcoholic who was not loved and have no empathy for others, and a paranoid schizophrenic who was abused by her grandfather, father and husband meet my needs and provide my development that I needed and give me experiences which supported my growth and my development? How can they? It's not possible. Get married, have children, get a career, buy a house, take a holiday is what they said. Once I was an adult, I put my mind to my career, searching for the approval, acceptance and belonging I never had. I was married, divorced, with 3 children by the time I was 25. I was offered 12 promotions by the time I was 35 years old. I knew I needed help. I went and saw a psychiatrist when I was in my late 20s. After the 8th 45-minute session, I had finally had the courage to tell the psychiatrist about the day my father tried to kill me. I was so ashamed to share that my father tried to kill me. I thought if the world knew, then they realised how bad I was, that my father actually wanted me dead. I mustered the courage and shared the moment that my father tried to stab me, and the psychiatrist said, "I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. What did you say?" I never went back. Years later, I couldn't get out of bed for 48 hours. I realised that when no one called to see if I was okay, that I really needed some help. Trauma had affected every part of my life, my work, my family, my children, my friendships. I became a people pleaser, wanting to belong and be accepted. I thrived in organisations which supported my needs, my development and provided positive experiences for me. This is where I was offered 12 promotions. I, however, struggled in organisations where they were not interested in my needs, my development, and the experiences were awful. They valued money before people. I was fired twice, given a warning and resigned in those organisations. I was determined to heal, to learn and to rebuild my life, investing in over 3,500 hours in therapy and personal development work across a dozen modalities over a 25-year period. The more work I completed, the more I couldn't handle my life or people controlling, manipulating or avoiding me. I became the people pleaser, desperately wanting approval, acceptance and to find a sense of belonging in others. As I didn't love myself, I then projected all the years of not being seen, not being heard or witnessed. This came out like a roaring volcano, projecting hurtful words onto my partner, my family and my children. I built an armour so thick no one could love me. I wouldn't let anyone in, but the sad truth was I believed it was everybody else that was outside of me. Until I took full responsibility for my life, my pain, my actions, and finally finding my inner peace, my confidence, my certainty, and my courage. I've healed my traumatic experiences and removed the armour that stopped people loving me. I've learned how to love myself, learned how to respond to life rather than react, and I've rebuilt my missing development, learning how to communicate my needs, my desires, my no's, and I have clear, healthy boundaries now. I went from being embarrassed to share that my father tried to kill me, to truly understanding that my father's pain was so great that when I stood up to him to stop him hurting my mum, the humiliation my father felt was too much for him to bear, and he unleashed his fury onto me. Not only have I forgiven my father for trying to kill me, but I've also forgiven everyone who has hurt me. I realised that my father was not capable to love anyone. He was punished for something he could never fix, so he had no empathy for others. I'm the founder of the Human Experience Compass. I've created the 10 Elements to Inner Peace program, how to heal, how to learn, and how to rebuild your life when your needs were not met, your development not provided, and you had some challenging experiences in your early developmental stages. A wise person once said, "The deeper your valley, the more you can hold space for others." I've been to the depths of despair and lived there most of my life, finding my way back to inner peace, clarity, certainty, and confidence. I can support you do the same. My name's Eugene Pizzolatto. Thank you.
Wow. Eugene, I have heard your story several times, but you touch me every single time.
Thank you.
I learn so much from every interaction I have with you. I respect the fact that you are able to be vulnerable and to allow us to see you. I think I told you when we met that I started to learn a lot about my ex-husband when you shared your story. Um, and as women, we need more men to share so we can understand what it's like on the other side. So let's talk a little bit about, we'll go around the room and give you feedback. And then I would love to just pick your brain and ask questions. I can see Selena is very emotional and wanting to share something. Selena, introduce yourself. Eugene didn't know where you're based. Chime in here with your comments or your questions.
Hi, hi, Eugene. I'm Selena. I'm in the UK, but I'm Zimbabwean by birth. When you were telling your story, I could see my father hitting my mom, and it's something I never shared with anybody. So I mean, I was just with you the whole way, seeing what you were going through, and when you slept, we tried to wake up your mom. I did that with my mom. I got home from boarding school. I found she was not well. Tried to encourage her, to wash her, to feed her. So I understand the pain of a child. You feel helpless. You feel, your hands are tied. What can you do? You just blame yourself. Maybe it's me. Maybe I caused that. Maybe, it's just like, thank you so much for sharing it, for being just so vulnerable. Like Gertrude said, it's just amazing. I think it would help my son. I think if when the link is out, Gertrude, I will send it to my son because he saw it, his dad doing it to me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
So history kind of repeated itself there for you, Selena. You watched it happen to your mother, and then you went through a similar experience in your relationship. And now the impact is with your kids. It's just amazing what a chain of events can do to a family. So Eugene, let's talk a little bit about the system that you have created to help people. And Ruth, I'm not sure if you're still there. Ruth is having a few challenges in Zimbabwe with electricity and power, so she might have dropped off.
Yeah.
But
So
I
probably before I start, if I could just respond to what Selena said, if
yes,
I could, is I think what I've realised is there's a lot of people like us, a lot of
Yeah.
people who who've had terrible stories and who've got nowhere to go and share them. And as I think as I'm evolving, in sharing my story, I'm just realising the enormity of what really happened to my story, and understanding that, I realised in preparing this story that I was ashamed to share that my father tried to kill me, and the shame just to think of the power of that, how it takes your voice when it was done to you, but then you feel ashamed to share with the world, and that's why I didn't share it for so long. And so I just want to acknowledge what you said, Selena, in that it's a story that needs to be told, and there's a lot of people who have, as I share, if your needs were not met, developed, not provided, then we're going to struggle. But there's no other way through it other than stopping and having people share and saying, we are human. And it does affect us. So I just want to acknowledge you, Selena, for sharing what you shared, and yeah, thank you. And I think we need to be talking about this a lot more and allowing people to witness and see the truth about how it affects us as people, as human beings. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
And this is when you also realize that our stories are more similar than they are different. You know, you were here in Australia, Selena is living in Zimbabwe, two completely different environments, but a similar life experience, which you wouldn't expect. And that's really the power of sharing these stories where we see the common threads
Yes.
that link us as human beings. It doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't
True.
matter what your upbringing is. We have shared personal experiences that can empower. You know, like I said, when I met you, I can see your presentation helping so many women understand their fathers, understand their husbands on one side. And I can see it also impacting and healing those children from those relationships as well, just like what
Yeah.
Selena was saying. So I hope you realize the magnitude of the work you have ahead of you.
I don't think initially I was just a man desperately just trying to share my story. But after doing this talk, I realised that I'm even more passionate than ever that there's a story to be told, and understanding what happens in our home. And I think the elements I've created, if we don't heal and we don't learn and don't rebuild what was taken from us, then we're going to struggle.
Yeah.
And what I've tried to do is put it in a way that everyone can relate to it, and everyone goes, it is possible. It is challenging. It's a challenging journey, but it's a very, very possible journey. You know, if I can stop and say today, I feel I've never felt such an inner peace as I do now. I have no energy with anyone. I just want to support humanity or people, but I feel full. I feel complete, and I feel it's such a peace, which is just such an incredible feeling. So it is possible, but it is a road that has challenging, and that's why I made the comment at the end around the depth. You know, someone said, Eugene, you've lived in such a dark place for so long. Is the depth of your ability to hold others will be extraordinary, and I think I'm only just starting to realize that now. Yeah.
Wow.
That's true. Powerful. I think a
So,
lot of men needs that. Thank you.
so true. So just give us an overview of the process you would take people through, the system that you've designed. I know you have spent hours and hours on personal development on yourself. Maybe you could give our listeners or viewers some insight as to what they can expect.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, good question. Thank you. So hours and hours, actually over 3,500 hours of therapy and personal development, just to
Wow.
say how much I've done. I've been a seeker of the truth for as long as I can remember, trying to understand myself and the world and how I turned up in the world. And what I discovered is a lot of really good modalities out there. But what I found was that none of them looked at me as a whole human. So what I found is we're very good at finding what the issue was, rather than looking at me and saying, well, can Eugene have a good relationship? Like, does he have enough substance in him to know how to communicate, or how to have boundaries, or does he feel good enough about himself to be able to do that? And I used the analogy once before, where if you went in to get your car serviced and your motor was broken, and you go to service and they go to fix the motor and realize you have two missing tires, they'll actually say to you, it's useless fixing the motor unless you fix the tires. But when we look at the human scenario, we're very good at looking at the situation or the symptom, but we don't look and saying, well, were our needs met? So were emotional needs met as a child? Were our developmental needs met as a child? And we don't tend to talk about this enough. There's a lot of children who don't have this done, and then when they turn up as an adult, we expect them to be more just because they look okay, but inside there's a hole, they're empty. So what I look at in my work, and I've had some incredible teachers, I've put the best of everything I've learnt together, and I looked at what would have supported me to heal, so it wouldn't have taken me 26 years to get here. That's what I've done, is I put it together. So what I look at is the first thing we look at is we understand where the person had been. So the truth about where they were, we explore the whole experience from their perspective, from the other person's perspective in the situation. So the first 4 elements, so I've got a 10-element process. The first 4 elements is look at the experience, then we look at the meaning we gave it. Something I never realised and I shared is when my father tried to kill me, and that day that happened was almost like my mum abandoned me and my dad tried to kill me. I took on the belief that if I stand up for what I believe in, I'll die. I'm not worthy of being supported. I'll be abandoned no matter what I do. But it wasn't conscious. Like, it's this feeling that runs in you, and then when life events turn up, it's almost like this invisible force where you feel really uncomfortable. You don't know what it is. So what we look at is first the experience and then the meaning we give the experiences. So we really take time to understand that. And then once we understand those 2 elements, we look at what's the effect it has on our life. So how does it play out in our life? So how does it affect our relationships, our career, our work, our family, our children? And then the 4th element, so the first 1 to 4 is really looking at what, where, what, why, and how. What was that really happened, and how did it affect us, and what meaning we gave it. Once we understand that well, and I think is a very, very difficult step for a lot of people, is when we truly understand that, then the 5th element and moving on is taking radical ownership. So what I realised is I kept hoping someone would come and save me. I was hoping someone, a woman, a person, someone, anyone would come and support me. But what I realised is until I turned up for myself, nothing was going to change. So so it's why I call it radical ownership, taking radical ownership for my life, my story, not blaming anyone. It's no longer outside of myself, bringing it in. And from there, the healing starts. So then there's a healing process, and then there's 2 parts of forgiveness, which is forgiving them and forgiving yourself. And then once that's the first 8 elements is the heal, then it's learning how to meet our own needs. I used to believe that if I love myself, I'm vain. But the truth is until I filled my own cup up, how can I love anybody else?
Yeah.
And so I'm in conflict with the world message, where I'm thinking, I can't do that. I can't be vain. It's got nothing to do with being vain. The truth is, if I can't love me, how can I love anyone else? So the 9th element is learning to love ourselves and also learn how to respond to life rather than react. And my son Joshua came up with a beautiful saying, and I use this now, is saying how we can organize our own thoughts. So in all situations, which I think was just a beautiful saying. And then the 10th element is a missing development. So who taught us how to communicate? Who taught us how to have healthy boundaries? So we actually go through a process to look at how to ask for what we want, ask for what we want, say no, handle difficult conversations with ease, and then have healthy boundaries that support us. So they're the 10 elements, I think, to freedom, to inner peace. It's not. I'm going to say to people. There's a lot of people out there promoting you can fix this quickly. It's the biggest load of rubbish I've ever heard of in my life. If it is quickly, then not much happened to you. Like, you're pretty okay, right? So for the person that I'm talking to, and you know who you are, man, this is a journey. It is doable, and if you make the commitment, there is a path to freedom. And it is challenging, but it is doable. And I encourage anyone. I wish people could feel what I felt then and what I feel now. If I felt this, I would have been working a lot harder. And I think I've worked pretty hard to get here. Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic. Well, Eugene, it's an absolute honor to always reconnect with you. The knowledge you're bringing to the world is needed for sure. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. Amazing, amazing story.
Thank you, Gertrude.
Wow. We have a comment coming in, I think, from Facebook. Let me just see. Somebody is saying, love the program, Eugene. Thank you for that feedback. So people are participating on Facebook and YouTube, and
Thank
they,
you for that feedback.
now I'm hearing the echo again.
Participating on Facebook and YouTube.
Can you
Yeah,
guys
sorry,
hear
because I just went, I cheated. I went and had a look at Facebook. I shouldn't have done that. That's why it was me before. It wasn't you.
Okay, good. At least I know I'm not going crazy. I'm not hearing voices.
I worked it out. I went, yeah, no worries. Cool.
No,
Cool.
no, thank you, Eugene. You're welcome to stay with us as we, go through the next
How
presentation.
does he have a website, or how do we?
Ah, yes, your website, Eugene.
Yeah, beautiful question.
Yet to
So,
come.
so my book is being edited at the moment, and the website is in development. So the idea is to launch in February, March next year. So in the meantime, people can get hold of me through Gertrude, or through Facebook, or through LinkedIn. Just put in my name. You can find me, and send me a message, and I'm happy to connect. But yeah, I'll be launching. I'm bringing all this to launch next year, and then I'll be offering programs for people to come. There's a level 1, 2, and 3. So it's a 2.5 day, 5.5 day, and then a 9.5 day master's program, which I'll run about once a year. But yeah, if people want to reach out, and I can let them know when I'll be running the seminars and the workshops, that'd be good. Thank you, Selena, for that inquiry.
Fantastic. And I will share all of your contact details with our database as well, Eugene.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I'm going to be slammed with people after they watch this video who want to get in touch with you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So as I was saying, you're welcome to stay with us. If you have to go, I understand you have to get on with your day. But we will now introduce our next speaker. And Selena, I've put the bio in the chat. Our next speaker is Mark Bello, coming to us from the US. Selena, would you like to introduce our next speaker while I line up the video?
Okay. Mark M. Bello is an attorney and award-winning author of realistic fiction and political legal thrillers. Retired from handling high-profile legal cases, Mark now gives the public a front-row seat watching victims fight for justice in our civil and criminal justice systems. Mark, number 39's award-winning Zachary Black legal thrillers mirror our times and events that shape our country. In addition to being an author and a veteran attorney, Mark is a member of numerous trial law associations, and Mark is and a feature writer for the Legal Examiner and other popular blog sites. He has written articles for numerous publications and made guest appearances on radio and talk shows and multiple podcasts. So in his spare time, Mark enjoys traveling and spending time with his family. He and his wife Tobia have 4 children and 8 grandchildren. That's Mark. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Selena. Here we go.
Well, hello. I'm speaking to you from West Bloomfield, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. My name is Mark Bello. I'm an attorney. I'm an author. I've written now 7 novels. Most of them, well, all of them, deal with social justice issues that are relevant today in the law, in politics, in America. I must admit I don't know New Zealand politics very well. Maybe you can enlighten me. But my first book, Betrayal of Faith, was a product of a case I handled back in the 1980s. I'm 69 years old. I've been an attorney for 45 years. And this case was the case of my life. A young woman came to me. Her two sons had been molested by a priest. The church was covering up the crime. They claimed they had no knowledge of the priest's propensity to abuse children. And our job was to prove that they did. She is seeking, for lack of a better way to say it, some kind of male role model in her life. And she turns to this priest who takes her boys on a camping trip and promptly abuses them. When they come back, they're sullen, they're angry, they're quiet, they're reserved, they lash out. Her first reaction to that is to go to the church and seek help. She's lied to by those people at the church. They do one good thing, and that's refer her to a psychologist or a psychiatrist who essentially digs up the truth. She hires the hero of all of my novels, Zachary Blake, a lawyer, and they pursue justice for the two boys. And that's essentially how my first book what came about. So at 65 in my senior citizen years, after I retired from practicing law, I became an author of legal thrillers.
Wow. Now that is a very, very sad but very common story. It's interesting how this theme runs through the whole world. I've heard it repeated over and over and over again. How did you feel when you finally won that case? Because for you as a young lawyer, that must have made an impact on you and your career going forwards, correct?
Well, it was the case of my life. It was very satisfying, not so much to win it. I'm not going to say it wasn't satisfying to win it, but to prove it.
Yes.
The behavior was deplorable, and proving that the priest was not only guilty of the conduct, that was kind of the easy part. The criminal case took care of that.
Mm-hmm.
But proving the cover-up, proving that the denials of prior knowledge were untrue, proving that people that were held in very high esteem in the Detroit area were lying to us and lying under oath was in one way devastating, but in another way very uplifting that we were able to blow the lid off the conspiracy. You mentioned that it's not a unique story. You're right, but back in 1983, 84, it was quite a unique story.
Yeah.
We were one of the first lawyers to bring a priest and an archdiocese to justice in these cases. Since that time, well over $3 billion has been paid out in verdicts or settlements to clients in the United States alone, there have been 19 orders who were filed for bankruptcy protection because of litigation related to the clergy abuse crisis. Some terrific lawyers have emerged from the crisis. They made this their career. I did not, but some very fine lawyers in the United States have pursued justice for a lot of victims like mine, and have done a terrific job.
Wow.
What strikes me, blows my mind, is this policy they have of transferring a priest from one place to another,
Yes.
not telling the new community that there's a predator in their midst, and just going on as if nothing happened, as if the idea that there's a shortage of priests somehow justifies putting a pedophile into an unsuspecting community.
That is the saddest thing that you hear about.
The best part of the best part of the case, though, has been the beginning of blowing the cover off of the cover-up. And you might have seen the movie Spotlight about the Boston, Massachusetts scandal.
Yes.
That was an Oscar-winning film after it was a book. That particular crisis, late 90s, early 2000s, people thought that was the beginning of this. This goes back way before that. And my case involves 6 kids who were abused in the early 70s, before the 2 that I represented, and the 2 boys I represented.
Wow.
These days, attorneys general are now prosecuting priests that were involved in this behavior, including the priest that this book is based on.
Wow.
So what you're talking about here is 50 years later. 50 years later, he's finally being held accountable. Until recently, I'll tell you a little story. The Archbishop, Bishop, I'm sorry, not the Archbishop, the Bishop of my county moved after this incident. After lying to me in a deposition, he moved to Illinois.
Right.
And became the Archbishop of Joliet, Illinois. The priest who committed the offenses ended his career in Joliet, Illinois, under this very same bishop's tutelage. The chickens went home to roost.
Yeah.
That's where he was served with this most recent criminal action that being pursued by the Michigan Attorney General. So that was my first book. It was based on an actual case that I handled, a scandal that we're all familiar with, unfortunately, all over the world, and one that the church is still wrestling with, and the Vatican is still wrestling with today. After that, I thought I was a one and done author. I thought, I'd fulfilled my bucket list.
Yes.
I wrote my book. This widow was a very strong character. I wasn't sure I could write a woman. I don't live life as a woman, so writing a woman was an unusual experience for me. But my principal character was Zachary Blake, and Zachary Blake, in some small way, is me.
Yes.
Has some of my characteristics, and characteristics, frankly, of many other lawyers who I have come
worked
across in my
with.
career.
Yeah.
But that book was followed by the 2016 election in America.
Right.
And I began to wonder, as the election played out, whether America would actually elect a self-professed anti-immigrant, anti-people of color bigot.
Yes.
So I wrote a book about it, and
Okay.
it was the first time I ever wrote a book. I mean, obviously, I'd only written one, but it was my first attempt to write a book that wasn't about a personal experience.
Right.
And the book is about a young Muslim woman who becomes the target of this bigoted president.
Oh
And
gosh.
she's accused of a crime she didn't commit, the murder of a white supremacist. The president, the bigoted president in my book, seeks to make sure she's convicted
Right.
because it suits his
Agenda.
presidential
Mhm.
agenda. And the book, Zachary Blake again appears as her lawyer, and another example of a strong young woman who defends herself very well. She makes some stupid mistakes along the way. We're not all infallible, but
Yeah.
Again, another my second book, Betrayal of Justice, is the name of that book.
Yes.
All of my books are betrayal of this or betrayal of that. But she is another strong female character.
Yeah.
My third book follows the second a bit. It does not have a female protagonist.
Okay.
That book is called Betrayal in Blue, and it's about it follows the white supremacy theme, but also deals with police protecting police and police pursuing police, and the so-called blue wall.
Right.
My fourth book is called Betrayal in Black. It is a book about a police officer shooting an innocent black man during a
Okay.
traffic stop. And there again, the book, the strong female character is the man's widow who hires Zachary Blake, and together they pursue justice against the offending officer and the police department and the community for their racist tendencies. So
I must say,
that
Mark,
gives you a flavor of what I've been doing.
I must say, the country you live in has literally given you so much fodder and content to write about at this moment in time. The United States is going through an interesting time at the moment.
Fact is certainly more interesting than fiction right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't
But I
call it.
really
I
have
wouldn't
to
call it
thank you
positive.
for. Say that again.
I wouldn't call it a positive experience, but it's certainly an interesting experience.
You know what my take is, Mark? I believe that the last president was a catalyst for good. America had a septic sore, and somewhere in the 60s with the civil rights movement, somebody slapped a Band-Aid over it and said everything is fine. And that wound has been festering for years, and all he did was take the Band-Aid off and expose what was really under the fiber of the society. And I think the healing time is now. People just need to go back into that wound, address it. You know, I lived in the US for a little while. I used to hear about the walking while black concept. I experienced it firsthand. I lived in Pittsburgh. I lived in Albuquerque. And it sounds like fiction when you're at a distance until you get to experience it yourself living in a country like the US. So let's hope some good is coming out of what has happened in the last 4 years. I think there is some good coming. It looks bad now, but with time, it's a time to heal.
Well, everything in time. You look at the a lot of people that I've interviewed with related to my books have asked me about the George Floyd and Derek Chauvin situations,
Yes.
and they talk about what a slam dunk the case was and
Mhm.
how sure they were he was going to be convicted. And I said, "What country do you live in?"
Mm.
Um, until the jury said not guilty or guilty,
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
wasn't
consider that
done.
case a slam dunk at all.
No,
And I
no.
think that I don't know. Again, I don't know much about New Zealand uh, legal system, but in in our country, we have what's called um, limited immunity for police
Right.
officers, and you have to overcome the burden of. Uh, it's almost as if the cops get the benefit of the doubt
Yes.
rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
In most criminal cases, the citizen is presumed innocent until proven guilty, and the person gets the benefit of the doubt. Uh, um, Cops seem to get a much huge uh, that's not proper English, but a huge benefit of the doubt in performing their duties, and to some degree that's correctly so.
Yeah.
But when a video is captured that shows a crime being committed right before your
On
very eyes,
screen. Yes.
and to argue that somehow the officer's behavior is justified over a $20 counterfeit bill, I keep asking the question: when did the cop become the arrester, the judge, the
Yes. And
jury,
the
and
jury.
the executioner?
Yes.
He gets to
Yes.
arrest the guy. I don't deprive him of his right to arrest, even if it's a
Mm.
wrongful arrest. But I stop at that. You don't get to prosecute, convict,
Mm.
and carry
And
out a
execute.
sentence all in the same at the same time. So that case came out the right way.
Yeah.
Will it act as a springboard for other cases? That
Hopefully it
remain that
will.
that remains to be seen.
Yeah. Mark, I could talk to you forever. Unfortunately, our time is up. It is an absolute pleasure meeting you. Thank you for what you're doing in portraying these stories.
My pleasure.
Fiction wrapped in reality gets these stories out. It's all about the storytelling. Until we start writing the stories and sharing them, a lot of people's lives are not portrayed. So thank you so much for coming online and sharing with us today. I look
My
forward to
pleasure.
inviting you to join us at our next upcoming summit. I'll email you information about that.
Alrighty.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in. I told you the HerStory platform attracts some of the most amazing people, creative people. And Mark, you were really a surprise for me this morning. You have so made my day. Have a
Well,
fantastic day wherever you are.
I'm happy to have made your day.
Thank you,
May
everybody.
I mention one more thing?
Yes, sure.
I just released a book called Supreme Betrayal,
Okay.
and it is about sexual assault and a woman speaking truth to power. So I call your attention to that book also because I think it's a good example of the kinds of things that HerStory magazine is about. So,
And all of these books are available on Amazon, Mark?
that is correct. Or at my
Fantastic.
website, which is markmbello.com.
All right. I will include your website with the magazine article we will write.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. Yet another amazing speaker. I'm going to put his website in the chat. Let's go around the room and give Mark some feedback. Starting with you, Selena.
No, I mean, I applaud him for his work, because if he used to be a judge working in the system, and not afraid of being called names or a betrayer or whatever, that's amazing. Because at the present moment, people are so afraid of the system, that they are going to be in trouble. They're going to be, you know, even if people stand in for something which they think this is the right thing, just in case, like health. I told my daughter is a nurse. She was saying somebody was given the wrong medication. And then my son-in-law came yesterday and says, okay, they were told that, there was a tablet which was really stopped about 400, over 50 years ago, 1940. So it was stopped because it was produced in Switzerland. But because it was so dangerous to humanity, it was stopped then. But now the UK, the NHS, they give it people without, like telling them what happened, or whether it was banned before. And this is from one, he got it from one of the lecturers who wrote a book about that. But he's afraid of speaking out. He knows, it's like people are dying. He's telling his students, but he can't stand up and say, guys, we are killing more people with using this. Because that's when they give you medication to counteract this, to stop that, to stop that. But when you say no, I mean, it just reminded me when I said I went into hospital, the doctors wanted me to have radiotherapy. And I said no, I had chemotherapy. So why radiotherapy? Oh, no, it's going to save you 2 years more. That was 2014, 2 years. I could have died maybe 2016. But when I said no, I'm enough, I'm okay, I don't want any more. Then they said, okay, if you decide to do it, this is our card. It's like they are giving you, it's like they love you so much. They want to maintain the disease. They want to maintain that. And when I said no, it's like she didn't want to see me again. Get out, you've wasted my time. But I felt elated because it's like I had, like stood my ground. But it's real now. The fear is, okay, if I go out and talk about people being pushed medication under under the throat, is it going to affect me? Yes, it will affect me. They can turn around and say, no, you're not quieting me. But it's the fear. We are so afraid. But he says, no, I'm going to write the books. Whether it's, like the thrillers or whatever, but they know what he's saying is the truth. So
Yeah,
I
and that's the
really
beautiful
thank
thing
you.
about him. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about Mark. He's using all of his legal experience to
Yeah.
expose current things that are going on.
Mm.
Eugene, what is your feedback for Mark?
I think anyone who puts a spotlight on anything that's injustice is good. I think anyone who does that, who brings the spotlight to that, and if I look at systems that have let people down, there's too many. I probably won't name them here. If I look in my own life, the police system let me down, the medical system let me down, the school system let me down, humanity let me down. It would have been, and I think as we evolve as a humanity, really good to put highlight on. Yeah, so I think from that perspective, and obviously he's a very capable man from a legal perspective. He understands the law better than I do. So from that perspective, I think that's really, really powerful. And I think we should always. I think it's really easy to, if I look in my time, people just turned the other way and they saw it and did nothing. Where so it's nice that someone is stopping, looking, and going, actually, this is not okay. And we need more people standing up to do that. My way is to heal, so that you don't worry about the perpetrator. His way is to highlight the injustice, and I think if we do that, then it encourages people to come up and have a voice, because it's really hard to have a voice. So for that, I commend him to highlight that he does that, and he does it well.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. We've got a couple of comments coming in from Facebook. Comfort, wonderful to see you this morning. She said, I need to get my hands on your book, living in Minneapolis, at the center of the George Floyd story. So go on to Amazon, Comfort. The book is available there. Thank you so much for contributing to this conversation. So, without further ado, we'll move on to our next speaker. Um, we're going to be hearing now from Bree. Bree Salzman is coming in from the United States. She had a diagnosis of a brain tumor that brought a crispness to her future vision that she had previously missing. She immediately began designing a life that was exciting her every single day. She now leverages her experience as an ICF professional certified coach in her work with accomplished folks who are asking themselves, what's next? She's also the author of a book called The Examined Life Workbook, which includes over 70 tools and strategies and exercises to help you step more fully into the true you. So, Bree, I know you aren't able to come and join us for the fireside chat. I'm glad that I got to ask you lots of questions when we did the interview. We're going to share your video now and give you some feedback. But thank you so much for being part of the Her Story movement. Here we go.
Hi, Gertrude. I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much. My name is Bree Salzman. I am located in Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. I'm 36 years old, and my life was totally turned upside down at the age of 30. I had a migraine, which wasn't totally like atypical for me. I'd had lots of migraines before, but this one in particular, no matter what I did, I could not get it to break, to go away. And as it progressed, the migraine kind of transitioned into blackouts in my right eye to where I couldn't see at all. So a coworker of mine encouraged me to go to an immediate care center. She was really concerned, and I just thought like, oh, they'll just give me some migraines or prescription strength migraine medicine, still kind of in denial about it. And instead, they told me I needed to go to the emergency room. And so I walked over to the emergency room, again, still thinking like, okay, you all are blowing this out of proportion. This can't be that big of a deal. And the ER doctor told me after a CAT scan, you know, you do have a mass on your brain and we need to admit you to do more testing. And that was the point that I thought, ooh, I probably need to contact someone to let them know where I am. And so they admitted me, and I don't remember a whole lot after that point because they had given me some morphine to kill the pain, and which also kind of puts you off in la la land as well. But that migraine started on a Monday, and that Friday of the same week, I was in surgery to have this brain tumor removed. And I think what is so unique about my personal experience is that a lot of times when people receive diagnoses such as these, there's opportunities and options to get second or third opinions or to be presented with a treatment plan and to make a decision. And certainly there was a treatment plan placed in front of me, but I needed to be going into surgery right away. There wasn't a lot of time to be considering. And so all that time that might have existed for me to settle with a diagnosis, make sense of it, create a plan for myself, it was non-existent. It happened after the fact, after it was all done. And so at that point, it was really about making sense of it. And I experienced this amazing period of what psychologists call post-traumatic growth, where I just had this incredibly positive change after this difficult life trauma or crisis in my life. And it touched every aspect of my life. My relationships just became way more vibrant. I changed careers. I have prioritized travel, that I'm no longer pushing that off to someday. One day I'll get to it. Someday is just not in my vocabulary anymore. Like, seize the moment and do it now is kind of my motto now. And it literally has changed my life in a very, very positive way. And the twist to all of it is that they weren't able to get all of the tumor. And while for some people that might feel like, oh my goodness, you have to continue to live with this. But for me, I'm almost grateful that they weren't able to get all of it, because I go back every year for a check-in and, maintenance and things like that. And it gives me an opportunity to ground myself of, am I living up to the promises that I made to myself of living this life by design, and not just going with the wind, but actually having intentionality in my life and having passion and excitement for others and for life in general. And so it's an amazing opportunity to continue to check in with myself and say, and kind of do that gut check of like, hey, are you doing what you said you were going to do?
Wow, what an amazing story. Just before, when we were catching up, I told you that we share something similar in having had these major health scares. Mine was heart failure. Something happens when you have a brush with death. I say to people, I started living to the full after my illness. I was reminded of how brief and short this life really is. What did your illness do for you?
Absolutely. And Gertrude, what is so interesting to me, and I don't have an answer for this, but not everyone experiences this awakening, if you will. There are some people that go through events like this in life, and it actually can do just the opposite, where it might be paralyzing or prevent them from stepping into their life more fully. And that's something that I haven't quite wrapped my mind around. Like, what is the distinction between being able to take that moment and leverage it as an opportunity to just cease your life, versus someone who might be experiencing just the opposite? And I have so much compassion for people who experience the opposite. And it's something so intriguing to me. For me, I think that the core distinction was I'm a former educator. And so I have this natural desire within me to be a lifelong learner. And so this experience was no different. My primary question is, what is this trying to teach me? What can I learn from this? How do I leverage this to evolve into something even better? And so that's the only way that I can make sense out of why my post-trauma journey was an experience of growth rather than depression or something else.
Well, it sounds to me like you've certainly grabbed it by the horns, so to speak, and you are really living your life by design. You're already crafting what this thing called life really is. So if you were to go back to the younger you, that moment when you got this horrible diagnosis, a lot of people will jump straight into fear, and then the fear consumes them, and then the disease consumes them, and they buy into the story. You didn't seem to have done that, and you've still got some remnants of this in your brain. What conversation would you have had with the younger you based on what you've learned up to this point?
It's so interesting because as I'd mentioned, I don't remember a whole lot of being in the hospital and the surgery itself, but my sister was with me, and she has shared with me that the nurses and doctors and the staff always loved coming into my room because I was always like, it's no big deal, it's going to be fine. And I was always laughing and making other people laugh. And I had no idea what was really going on, but I would just look at that younger self and that younger version of me and just say, keep doing what you're doing. Like this way of living and looking at life is infectious to others, and others need to see this example. They need to see that this is possible.
Oh, I love that. That is really exquisite. It is about other people seeing you as the possibility. And it looks to me like, your family life has been more enriched because of the experience. Everything that I saw in terms of me cyber stalking you online, family is a huge priority to you, correct?
It is, yes. My family is very important to me. And I am very close. I have three sisters, and I'm close. I'm very fortunate to have a great relationship with all three of them. I love them dearly.
Oh,
And we, ironically, all live very, very far apart from one another. Like, we can't just drive to see one another, but we somehow always make a point to stay connected. We have a sisters weekend every year. We fly to visit and travel with one another. I mean, it's kind of interesting. We've also made jokes about, like, for being so far apart, we see each other more than we did when we lived in the same town together. But it does. I mean, it really, going through something like this just brings a crispness to what is important. There's
mm,
no, not that there's no gray area, but that gray area just becomes so much smaller, and
yeah.
and uh the you can just see so clearly and make decisions about, this is in alignment, this is not in alignment, and
Yes.
be firm in those decisions because you know it's right for you. And my family is one of those things. It is right for me, and it feels so good to be connected to
Oh,
them in this way.
wow. That is absolutely wonderful. Now, you've written a book and you are now helping other people, navigate these challenging experiences. Let's talk a little bit about your book. What can people expect?
Yes. So as I was going through this journey myself of post-traumatic growth, I just had so many people coming to me saying, "You're such an inspiration. Like, I want to live my life like that." And not in the way of like, I want my life to look like yours, but I want to live my life in a way that feels like truly integrated and in alignment with my values and my vision. And I want to have a zest for life, whatever that looks like for that other person. And I just thought, I don't know. I don't know if I have a book in me. But over time, as more people were coming to me, I thought, you know what? I could really take my experience as an educator and craft a workbook rather than me writing a book, giving you all the answers, telling you here's the 5 steps to examine your life and live by design and all of these kinds of things. I thought, no, I don't have the answers. I don't know how you should live your life. Like, but what I can do is I can create space for you to explore that for yourself. And so
Mm,
that's what the Examined Life Workbook does. It is a true workbook. So there are activities, you're journaling, you are digging into the depths of who you are. And then you're looking to the future of, who do I want to become? And then the very end, we actually take that and put it into action. And I think that's sometimes the toughest part for folks, because we have this natural desire to do, and like, let's fix it, let's problem solve. But where the largest transformation occurs is when you can sit in that space of, who am I? What do I want to become? And then from that place, design your action with intention that's going to connect those two.
mm. That is just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I think we go through the challenges that we go through in life so we can become teachers, correct?
Oh my goodness, yes.
So every single moment was worth it.
A
You
thousand
are,
percent.
yeah, you are really the light at the end of the tunnel for somebody else who's going through a similar experience right now. And what I'm really hoping with these interviews is that as people watch us online and they hear all these amazing stories, you've set an example of what's possible. That is just awesome. And so journaling and writing down things every day, how did that help you?
Well, first, I mean, I had to get really honest with myself about, who am I really, and not what does society expect of me, or what does my family expect of me, or what does my spouse or partner or friends or anyone, but what do I really expect of me? What do I want for me? And that's tough because we are always getting so many messages externally. And so to clear out that clutter and really listen to the voice that is within me, that was the biggest challenge for me in the beginning because I had put that voice away. I didn't even know the voice even existed anymore. And so to discover that again and then learn what do I do with this? There's power behind this voice, and how can I leverage that in a way that lifts others up and has a wider impact. And so that has been the transformational experience for me, is to be able to see this ripple effect. I have these examined life workbook groups where we actually, in a small group, we do this work together in community. And we just finished one last week, and one of the journeyers shared, I've experienced this growth, but more importantly, the people around me are also experiencing this growth. And Gertrude, that's like a dream come true for me, that people who are not even working directly with me are impacted with it because of that ripple effect. And that is, I could have never imagined that. It just gives me chills.
I love it when you give yourself chills. It means you're on the right track.
Yes. I always say I'm always shooting to blow my own mind.
Bree, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you this morning. Thank you for the energy and the life you bring into the world.
Oh, thank you so much, Gertrude.
We're back. Thank you so much, Bree. Absolutely fascinating presentation. And I know, Selena, you can relate so much to everything she said, having had a health challenge yourself. What was your take on this presentation? Again, you're muted.
As you said, she took it up to onto herself to say, yes, I need to do this. Nobody was going to do it for her. People, they just enjoyed saying, I always tell people these days that, like doctors, nurses, not so much nurses, but doctors, they're there to maintain the diseases. They're there to maintain their work. If they heal everybody, then they won't have money. They
They'll
won't
put
have any
themselves out of
jobs.
business.
Yeah, they'll run out of business. So it's like if you allow yourself to be used as a guinea pig, then you die.
Yeah.
There's no way you survive, because those pills, they really eat you up. But some people just worship doctors. Oh, the doctor said, and that's why I think, why should we give our power away? We shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, well done to Bray. Honestly, she's so strong. Look at her. She's just like a shining star, so bright, so full of life. And she has passion for what she's doing.
Yes. You
Mm.
can feel the life force in her
You
for
can,
sure.
definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
So we are almost coming to the
It's
end of
lovely.
our.
It's what a community. Honestly, it's amazing. We have so much, like to learn. It's just packed with goodness. She did a workbook. A workbook is something which is really hard to bring out.
Yeah.
But she did it just for the love of what she's doing. She wants to make life easier. One-stop shop. You go there, you get a coach, you get your work, you experience good life. And that's like, I like the way what she was written on. Love the life you live the life you love. So, life by design. Wow, powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
No, absolutely wonderful.
Mm.
So we're nearing the end of our summer today. We've got 2 more videos to play from 2 amazing people. The next presenter is Dr. Jo Weber. I'll read out her bio. After earning her PhD in quantum physics from Nottingham Trent University in England in 1988, when women made up only 14% of the STEM workforce, Dr. Weber attended a quantum physics conference at Oxford University, where she was just one of two women in attendance. The other woman was the secretary of a man who was also in attendance. And refusing to allow statistics to define her, she held the title of CEO at 4 successful businesses, including Phase Corporation, a software solution provider to pharmaceutical and biotechnological markets, Energy Solutions International, and a software technology for the energy sector. Virtual Piggy is a fintech company coined by PayPal for kids, by Forbes in 2012, and also working for a cybersecurity company. So her latest venture is Pod, which is POD, and it is a networking app designed to introduce people online, but connect them in person as well. She also recently acquired Million Women's Mentors and the STEM Connector. So I've learned a lot from Dr. Weber after my interview with her. She really helped me get clear what the app that we have designed for the HerStory movement is all about. So Dr. Weber, it gives me great pleasure to share your video. I know you couldn't be with us, but at least you're with us in spirit. So here we go. And Selena, I know you might have to drop off and go to sleep there in the UK. If you have to do that, thank you so much for being with us today. It's always awesome to have you on the panel giving feedback to our speakers.
Thank you. I'll just stay in the background. I'll listen.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you, Gertrude. My name is Joe Weber. I'm based in sunny Los Angeles, California, in the United States. So a little bit later in the day, but the day before for me right now with the time zone. But thank you, thanks for having me on. I think, originally, you asked where I'm from. Originally, I'm from England, from the United Kingdom. I still have the accent. And I think, what I'd like to talk to you guys about today a bit is I run a company. I actually run 2 companies, right? Jack Dorsey can do it, so can a woman, right? I run 2 companies right now. I run one company that's called STEM Connector, and I run another company that's called Pod. And Pod is a networking technology. And I think we actually have 26,000 users in New Zealand. So it's been around for a while. But let's talk about STEM Connector. And
first, yes,
in particular, a part of STEM Connector called Million Women Mentors. And we set this up in 2014, and the goal was to try and get 1 million women, right? Because that was the name, 1 million women mentoring other women. And the reason for this is particularly in STEM, we can see that women, when they go into STEM, they tend to leave. And we can see that the women that stay in STEM careers often have a mentor. So that seems to be an important part of it. So what we do is we work with corporations, some of our biggest customers, clients like Pepsi-Cola, 3M, very large US corporations that are very dedicated to this approach and mentoring women. And also, I think one of the things that we really focus on, earlier this year, we put out a report, which was the state of diversity, equity, and inclusion in STEM. And we update that continuously. We're very focused in on, when you look at these corporations, they need a stream of STEM talent, and they also need diverse STEM talent coming into their corporations for them to thrive. So we are the connecting group that kind of makes that happen. I don't know how many of you guys know this, but this pandemic has disproportionately affected women.
Mm-hmm.
And in the United States, we've lost 5 million women from the workforce, and we are now at a 36-year low in terms of women in employment. So when
wow, that high.
It's crazy. And when you look at things like, you look at the Fortune 500, which is a big indicator in the US, right? 7% of the CEOs are women. 7%, right? Thanks guys. Thanks for letting us get there. 7%. Well, with this pandemic, we just wiped out a large rung below those, because the senior ranks of many of these companies were starting to get larger numbers of women on there. So you're starting to see more like 25%, 30% of women at the senior executive level who would then become potentially the next CEO. Well, the trouble with COVID is so many women ended up, and I know one, a professional woman who I thought was fantastic running a business. And all of a sudden she found herself with 2 adult children at home, badly affected by the pandemic. And she's just like, I can't run this business and take care of my family. And it's mostly the women that end up taking care of the families.
Yes.
So one of the things we are looking at the moment is we're looking at a new movement called 1 Million Women Workers.
Okay.
What we are looking to do is, I don't know how many people know this, but about 50% of people who have STEM careers, you don't actually have to have a 4-year degree. So we are looking at, you've got Microsoft, you've got Google, you've got a number of different companies offering these certification programs where you can spend 6 months intensive, come out with a really useful certification that the jobs that the corporations are looking for.
Right.
So we're looking at projects where we can help reskill and retrain, give women the skills that they need to get back into the workforce, because a lot of the jobs they had have just gone away.
Yeah.
But then, you know, Gertrude, I don't know if you know things like cybersecurity, right? During the pandemic, the number of cybersecurity attacks went up 7-fold. So it's 700% increase during the pandemic.
Right.
Cyber thieves are taking advantage. It's a global problem. It's a problem of national security in every country.
Everywhere.
There's zero unemployment, right? In cybersecurity, we can't get enough people in cybersecurity to meet the need. And yet
that's really interesting, because my husband is in IT, and he's just been approached by an agency saying, hey, have you thought of, you know, diversifying and specializing in cybersecurity? So it is a real thing.
It's huge. It's huge. And one of the things is you come out of school with a 4-year degree, and what do you know about cybersecurity? Nothing.
Wow.
You know, one of the things, we're doing a few projects. Last year, we did a project with Walmart in the US, and it was focused on introducing cybersecurity. And working with Walmart, we introduced a program for elementary kids, which, you know, you think, that's a, you know, the K, you probably don't do
K-12, right?
Oh, you do, K through 8, right?
Yes,
So looking at that age. And we think, how can like a 6-year-old handle cybersecurity? Well, it was really cute and well done. I thought it was, you know, okay, go find grandma and find one of the programs where grandma is logging in. Maybe it's her email or something, and find out what her password is, and then help grandma pick a password that is really easy for grandma to remember, but really difficult for anyone to guess. So I thought that was lovely, right? Because it's just an early kind of introduction to get kids thinking about this.
And
then it also staged and went, you know, for all the way through high school, so different levels could kind of understand it.
That is absolutely fascinating.
So
now this program that you're offering, and I'm so excited that I got to meet you. You know, we had our little conversation a bit earlier, and I told you what my vision and my passion is in the world. I have so many women, so many intelligent women who are looking for opportunities like this. When I lectured at the University of New Mexico, I got involved with a nonprofit called Cultivating Coders. And we were on the reservations of New Mexico because the only employment you can find there is in the casinos, and there's fiber optics throughout the desert.
Yep.
And our project was sponsored by Microsoft. They gave us the laptops that we would gift to the women if they did the boot camp and they completed. And they learned how to make apps. They learned how to make websites. They learned how to make an income sitting on the reservation because they had the infrastructure to allow them to do that. Now, in parts of Africa, it's the same thing. And that's the vision that I have. And I'm just so excited when you responded to this query and to do this interview at the possibility of perhaps bringing this to Africa, because I really think Africa is the next frontier. A lot of people are not focused on it when it comes to technology. And yet we have brilliant, articulate women who would work their butts off just to get an education, get a qualification so that she's able to feed her children. How can we get involved? Talk to me.
So, I mean, there's a number of different things we're doing. One of the things that we're doing that is just starting this year, we have employers, right? These corporations that work with STEM Connector, they're all over the world. And I think particularly after COVID, I think everybody's learned that you don't actually have to physically be in an office to be productive.
To do the work, yes.
So one of the things we're doing with them is, you know, if you go to like LinkedIn or Indeed and some of these other areas to try and find jobs, if you're just coming out of university or coming out of school, you don't have those qualifications, you don't have the experience, but yet these companies are looking for people like you. So how do we match it up? So what we're doing is we are creating an environment where all of our members can post any jobs or internships. Internships is a great way to get in. A lot of people don't know this. You can be an intern at NASA at age 16.
Are you serious?
And then that often leads to a career through NASA, right? How fabulous is that kind of thing? So
my God.
We're going to I think so much of this is networks, right? White men have the best networks.
Yeah.
And 70% of jobs, you never even see them advertised.
They don't get advertised. It's all passed on through word of mouth.
Exactly. So if we can make it more in the open, if we can put these jobs out there, and because it's on the internet, anyone in the world can see and apply to some of these jobs. Now, some of them will be, you know, geofenced, they'll be in a certain area, but not all of them will. And most of the corporations that we work with are global. So they've got offices forever, all over the world. So I do think that's going to be something that levels the playing field.
Yes.
And then, you know, Gertrude, you were talking a bit earlier about, before we got on the camera, about some of the things you're doing. I feel 2020, although it was an awful year in many ways.
It's the best year ever.
Sitting in America, I saw things change. Things that would have taken 50 years
to happen.
It happened.
The women who are able to work from home and look after their kids, you can work around. So it's the same thing with me, right? Everybody kept saying, oh, this is a disaster. I was watching something online, I can't remember what it was, but somebody was presenting and saying that the Chinese write the word for crisis with two symbols. One stands for opportunity, one stands for danger.
Yeah, I've been using that.
You have? Great minds think alike.
Because there was a lot of opportunity that came out of it. I mean, some of it is these vaccines, the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines. We went forward years in terms of vaccine manufacture with the way those two vaccines are made. And I think it's going to be great for so many other things, including cancer, Alzheimer's, other immune system disorders. I just think this wouldn't have happened. You know, we'd never made a vaccine in America in under 4 years. 4 years was our gold standard until this hit. But
then people started sharing
the scientific community across the world. It was fabulous to see. So I totally agree with that Chinese proverb. The opportunity was there. And I also think, you know, in America, a lot of social ills that have plagued us as a society for many years came to the foreground last year. and the lid is not going back on that box.
No,
right?
no. You know, it's funny. I had a conversation with another lady the other day who was saying to me, oh, it's so sad what's happening. And I said, no, what's actually happened to the United States is this. The race relations issue in the United States had not been fully addressed. Everybody thought that through the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s, it was taken care of. And to me, watching it from an outsider and having lived in the US a couple of times, it was like somebody had slapped a Band-Aid on a septic sore.
Yeah.
And the pus in that wound was festering for years. And the presidency that was in place helped to pull the Band-Aid
Bring
off.
it out, didn't it? Yeah.
And now the community, the society has to address the septic sore.
Yeah.
You know, I talk about an African philosophy called Ubuntu, and Linux is based on this philosophy. Ubuntu ngamuntu ngabantu says a person is only a person through other people. That as human beings, we are an organism. We are so interconnected. There is no difference between us. What we see as our facial differences is only skin deep.
Yeah.
And when they finished sequencing the human genome, they found that every single human being on this planet is 99.9% the same. So COVID has come to teach us that we are literally a breath away from affecting and infecting each other. That if one person in the world is not okay, we're all not okay.
Yeah. No.
And I am so excited, Joe, with what is coming.
Yes. I
with
can
what
see it.
has happened.
I can see the change here. You know, I can see, I mean, I think it's really drastic in America.
Yeah.
You know, I've been working a number of years and I've been working in large corporations, and people would feel, and I've mostly worked with men because I'm a scientist, I'm a PhD,
Yes.
right? So I've mostly been with guys, and people would feel it was fine to be openly sexist and racist. And for years that happened, this old boys club. And I feel that somebody's
it's
just
over.
Close the door. The party's over, boys. You're going to have to get with the picture here.
There's no going back. And that's why I was saying to you, the number of opportunities I'm getting to present sitting on my couch at home. You know, yesterday I had a company based in the US called McCormick's. I think they make spices.
Yeah.
And they're having this diversity and inclusion thing in Poland. It was the McCormick's Poland that got hold of me. And I'm thinking, how did that happen? I'm sitting on my couch in New Zealand.
It's really cool.
The world is flat now because of the technology, because of the internet.
Also, I think in America, we really respect your prime minister.
Yes. She's really amazing. She's amazing. The reaction and the response that New Zealand took is an example of what should have happened everywhere else in the world.
Absolutely. You know, it was, and we saw that, you know, so she's got a lot of respect. I think New Zealand's hitting above its weight class right now, right? You guys.
So, and I feel blessed I'm here. I'll be honest with you. This is my second pandemic, and never in my lifetime did I think I would be so fortunate. So let me ask you this question. If I could take you back to the younger you, that young woman who was working in a very, very challenging environment as a scientist and is now able to reflect back on what you've done with your career. If you could have a conversation with that younger woman and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom, what would you tell her about life?
You know, the big thing is the things that are possible now for a woman were not possible when I was young. The road I took, I probably would, if I was to do it again, to do things now, I'd do things a bit differently, but that's because the world is different. So I think, you know, when I was younger, and I think most people are like this, and you go to university, you don't really know what you want to do. But I found my passion in work. So any of my work that I've done, I've thrown myself into it wholeheartedly. And I still kind of feel that that's the right thing to do. You know, maybe I look back and think, oh, wait, I shouldn't have stayed so long in that company, or I shouldn't have, but it's small stuff. I think at the end of the day, you know, the passion to work and the ability to find pleasure in your work is tremendous, because so much of our lives are work.
Yeah.
So I think, looking back, saying to somebody, I mean, I was just such a knucklehead when I was like 18, 19 at university, jumping off bridges, swimming, doing stupid stuff, really stupid stuff. Like my kids, I'm like, oh, you don't do that, right? Nobody would do anything like that. Riding motorbikes, I mean, all this stuff, right? So I think now, looking back, I'm probably a little bit lucky to be alive with some of the scrapes, but maybe don't do some of that stuff. But living life to its fullest. I also think, and I think I've always embraced this. People, you mentioned that comment earlier about humanity as an organism. One of the things COVID did is it brought all of humanity together.
Yes, it has united us in a very, very strange way.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, when I came to New Zealand, I would tell stories of the AIDS pandemic. And I would share how my grandmother had 11 children, 34 grandchildren, 19 of my first cousins died of HIV-related diseases,
wow. Yeah,
including my youngest brother. I'll talk about having 49 orphaned kids on my side of the family alone, another 40 on my ex-husband's side. I could see people's eyes glazing over like I was telling a fiction story, like it wasn't true. And now we're seeing this all over the world. We have been united in a
that's interesting.
Very interesting way. Yeah.
I think you're right. It's very interesting because you're right. I think in America and in the UK and other parts of the world, it was, this is something that's happening to gay men. And I don't really know any gay men. So it's happening to them.
You can't relate to it.
And then it was happening in Africa. So it was happening to Africa and gay men.
Yes.
But they weren't personally connected.
Yeah.
And I still think it blows me away, to be honest with you, this absolutely blows me away. We've had so many people here, and so many in America. There's a guy who's been a 55-year-old guy who's telling everybody the pandemic's made up, doesn't exist. And then the next thing you know, he's on a ventilator. Oh. And you just
the stupidity of it. It's
how can you say it doesn't exist? I mean, I don't know what's the death toll now? It's over 500 million.
500 million. Yeah. And you don't believe it. What do you want to see?
Yeah. I think that's the number of cases. Let me just have a look at, one of our clients, Johns Hopkins, I don't know if you've seen it. They did a fabulous job when this first came out. They created a tracking environment. So at any time, if you go to Johns Hopkins, they are tracking all of the COVID cases around the world. I mean, as much as you can, because it's not always reported, right?
Yeah.
They just done a phenomenal job with it. So you can look, I'm looking right now, worldwide. Okay, so we're tracking, I mean, this thing is not gone, right? April 30th, 14,000 people lost their lives on that day, to COVID. So it's still, this thing is still very much out there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you all day, Joe. You are like a sister from another mother. I am so happy I got connected with you through this interview.
I'm gonna have to come to Wellington now and take you out for a glass of wine.
Okay? Definitely. Consider that already done. I just want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. The HerStory platform is a platform that uplifts, inspires, educates women worldwide. And it's through the sharing of these stories that we can make a difference. I think Joe has presented all of us with an amazing opportunity to have a career change. You could be that mom who's lost her job and you're sitting at home. Now you have a place to go. Joe, just give us the name of your website.
So, yeah, I mean, we are stemconnector.com.
Excellent. And I will put this with a transcript and with a magazine article that we're going to publish so that all of you ladies, you might know somebody who is looking for work, who's looking to pivot and find a different direction to take advantage of the internet. The world is flat right now, ladies. You have no excuse to say that you can't feed your children, you can't find a job. Create something of your own. The world is flat and we have the mentors who can help us get there. Thank you for putting this app together, Joe. I'm excited to where you and I are going to go.
Yeah.
You will have that wine in Wellington when you come.
We will. We will.
Okay, so that was the STEM connector. So Joe Weber really inspired me personally to work on my the app for the Her Story movement. She has silently been a mentor. She kind of showed me an example of how I could bring our community together. So Joe, I'm eternally grateful to you for what you've done. And I also like the fact that you've highlighted in this presentation that you don't have to have a 4-year degree to get employed in IT. Cybersecurity is a big issue right now. And the certification programs that you mentioned that people can enroll for and get employment through is another great tool or asset that you've brought to the community. So Selena, what feedback would you like to give to Joe before we go on to our next speaker?
I think she never stops. She's so energetic and so infectious. You know, we can't do anything help it but just love her. And you know, it's just like I was mesmerized just looking at her and listening to her. It's just so encouraging. It's
And
just
having
good
worked in
to
such a male-dominated environment most of her life as well,
yeah.
I can just imagine how many challenges and odds she had to go against to get to where she is.
Mm.
Absolutely awesome.
Mm.
All right, so our next presenter is coming to us from Canada this time. Emma Chase is her name, and I'll just read her bio. An alcoholic mother and a narcissistic father, raised by an affectionate, dependent grandmother. Emma understands the effects of childhood trauma. Leaving home at the age of 15 in order to get out of the vicious cycle of abuse, life has been colorful to say the least. Having always felt different growing up, she spent most of her early adult life questioning the meaning of it all, including her purpose. After years of trying to numb the feeling of unworthiness and the heartache of never feeling loved by her parents, Emma decided she would break the cycle of trauma in her journey into adulthood. Her intentions were noble, but the pain she suppressed kept surfacing and bleeding out on everyone in her path. In 2011, after losing a battle with glaucoma, Emma's right eye had to be removed. In the midst of this crisis, her husband began becoming unfaithful. Her old beliefs kept her in that marriage for another 8 years before one day waking up to a complete identity crisis. Feeling alone, scared, and crippled with self limiting beliefs, she felt she had two choices. She would wake up or quit living. She chose life, and that decision has led her down the path of healing her body, mind, and spirit. She's now a mindset coach, an access conscious bars facilitator, and soon to be an RTT therapist. Her life's purpose is to be more conscious of the art of living and parenting and help people realize that in order to do better, they must know better. So, Emma, it always gives me great pleasure to share who you are to our community. I know you spoke at the last conference, but I just wanted to share your amazing story again today. So, here we go.
so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Emmanuel Chase, and I'm 37 years old, from Montreal, Canada, and I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you. My story is a long one, but I guess the pivotal point in my life, the moment that was the aha moment, was after losing my right eye to a long battle with glaucoma. And shortly after finding out that my husband of many years was being unfaithful, sort of all at the same time. And that throughout all of the surgeries and all of the process that I was going through, the surgeries, the appointments, the medical appointments, sort of finding out that he was being unfaithful and, you know, receiving the calls, the emails, the text messages confirming that as I was on my end struggling, feeling that my family was behind me, supporting me, that, you know, my ex-husband had created a double life. And so I felt very lost in that moment and unworthy of living. And I allowed myself to spiral out of control into this abyss of darkness, to a point where it's looking at my children and feeling sorry that they have me as a mother. And so, you know, at the bottom of the barrel, there's only one way, and that's up. That's always been my motto. I love life. I've always loved life. But I got very stuck in the why me mentality. And why is this happening to me? Haven't I been through enough? There can't be a God. I've been sort of thrown off the boat, the love boat, and I was cast away. And I didn't like the dialogue in my head because that's just not me. And so you are faced with making a decision. Are you going to stay in that pity party? Or are you going to get up, stand up, shake it off, face the world? And looking at my two beautiful boys, that was the decision I made.
Wow. What a journey you've been on. And you know, this is such a unfortunately common thing that happens to a lot of women in life. I was married for 27 years. Same story. My thoughts were taking me to a dark place when I decided to leave. I ended up with congestive heart failure. Almost died of heart failure in a rice field in Indonesia. And I love what you said there, that, you know, when you hit rock bottom, the only way from there was up. It kind of taught me that every time I go down, I get excited, but I'm feeling at the lowest point in my life, because life is cyclical, right? It's got those ups and downs. And it's when you start learning to ride the waves that life throws at us, that you really start to live. So
asking what else is possible. You know, I remember the day that I said, okay, I'm leaving. Now I'd been unemployed, out of work, and, you know, quote unquote sick for about a year. I miscarried my third child, and a month later the surgery started. So there was a whole year of darkness. And I remember grabbing my boys and walking down to our local welfare office. I'm not sure if that's how you call it in New Zealand, the social, you know, the social assistants.
Yes.
And having my boys by each hand and saying, this is not about pride, this is about survival. If you stay in this relationship, you're gonna lose a piece of yourself. And getting to the counter and explaining the situation to the woman, not in great detail, but asking her what the application process was.
Yes.
And there was a woman behind the desk who looked at me in my eyes and said, does he hit you? And I thought, what a strange question. I said, no. She says, is he violent towards you or the children? And I said, no. And she said, well, it's only $300 a month. If I were you, I'd go home and try to work it out.
Oh, are you serious?
Those woman's words imprinted in my mind and on my heart. And I stayed in that relationship for 8 years. And in those 8 years, I built a wall around my heart.
Yeah.
You know, and that was in hindsight, it was to learn to love again. But for a long time, my life was a blur. It was just getting through another day. Yeah.
It's funny because I come from a culture where in Africa, unless a man is physically beating you up, people think there's no real excuse for you to leave. And I didn't realize it happens in the Western world as well. I had a lot of people say the same thing, but he pays the bills, he looks after the children, he doesn't beat you up. Why are you leaving him?
He work?
And
Does he have a job?
yeah,
Yes.
and yes, he ticks all of
Why
those
are you
boxes.
complaining?
Yeah, I had that. And I stayed on as well. And this is the thing about women, right? My staying on was because I didn't want my children to be brought up by a stepmother. I know that I should have left 10 years prior to this, and I didn't. And I just hung in there for years. And I'm grateful for my 3 beautiful children. That I would never exchange. And I'm grateful that I tried to keep it together for as long as I did. But I remember having this dream one night. And in the dream, I just heard a voice that said, "You are the glue. You are the glue that's keeping this together." And I woke up that morning and it felt like I was trying to keep my marriage together with bubble gum, an adhesive that just wasn't sticking. And when you can resonate to that too, right? Wow. So you lost your business too in the middle of all of this?
No, this was actually, one day I woke up and I said, I'm going to make him love me. I can make him love me again. And that's from, the abuse of a father, the sexual abuse, the violence as a child, the always needing validation. And now I managed to somehow convince myself that it was my fault, right? I was a hideous monster. I'd lost an eye. He'd seen me without it the 3 months before you get the prosthesis. I gained a bunch of weight from having kids. So, I'm going to make him love me. I'm going to make him fall in love with me. This isn't his fault. He needed an outlet because poor him, he had to take care of me while I was going through this.
Yeah.
And so I decided, baking sweets from home, and it grew into a business. And so we opened the businesses together. In 2018, my youngest son came up to me just before Christmas, and he was 10 years old, 11 years old. And he said, "Mommy, Daddy has another cell phone. And when you leave the house and you're working late at the bakery, Daddy's always texting other people on the cell phone." And of course I went, "Hun, that's an accusation." And he's, because he kept saying, "Are you going to talk to Daddy about it?" And my heart dropped. And I knew I had to do something because I'm raising men who are going to have relationships, and I'm teaching them how to treat women.
Yes.
And so I made the decision, to leave, to take the children. But shortly after, I'm single mom, 2 kids, running 2 bakeries, staff, employees, economics, and yeah. So just when I thought I turned the corner and I was like, I'm stepping into my greatness now, the universe had a different plan and said, "You know what? Maybe this is part of the old package. So we're really going to tug the rug from underneath your feet. You're going to fall on your bum. But this time when you rebuild, you're really going to step into the essence of who you are."
And that's what happened. Wow. And as women, we sometimes forget that we are the role models for our children. I remember when I left, I had a conversation with my daughters, all 3 of my kids. And my daughter was about 21 at the time. She had seen me leaving and coming back and leaving and coming back. And the last time I came back, she sat me on the bed and she said, "Mom, why are you back?" And I said, "Why? This is my home. This is my husband. How can you ask me that?" And she said, "Mom, Dad doesn't love you. He doesn't deserve you. And you are like a monkey in a cage, and that cage door is open and you don't know how to get out." And I remember thinking, who are you? Why are you saying this to me? And hating her for it. But it took me 4 years to fully process that and to realize that I was trapped in this illusion, this image that we portray to the world of the perfect family, husband, 2 cars, 3 beautiful children, businesses. And yet I was dying inside. And then when I did walk out, like you, I walked out with nothing. I lost a $4.5 million property investing business. I lost my health. I was flat on my back, literally in a rice field.
Broken and broken. Yeah, like
broken.
Broken. Yeah, we should put that on a t-shirt, you know. When you're broken, there's only one way up, you know.
I love that.
But that makes so
Wow.
much sense because my ex-husband, in front of everyone else, I mean, this is why I thought I was crazy for so long. Like, he would see children on the street and he was like, well, hello, how are you? And he would greet women and people and open doors for little old ladies, and everyone loved him.
Mhm.
You know, in the relationship, it was always like, oh, he's so social, he's so sweet, you're so lucky. And so the facade was so, you start to question yourself.
Yeah.
Beauty of narcissism.
Oh my gosh. So
Your daughter is one very wise young woman.
she sure is. And she is my best friend in this world. She is my, my go-to person when I need advice. And she was always like that from a very young age, wise beyond her age. And so I always fall on her when I need to bounce ideas off someone. She knows everything that's in my mind. She's my best friend. And now when you look back at your life, and if you could have a conversation with that younger woman at this critical point in her life, not knowing whether to go left or right, from what life has taught you, what 3 nuggets of wisdom would you give her?
Number one, I would definitely say, don't fear or anticipate the shame and judgment of others, because that's what held me in that relationship was, what will my family think? What will people think?
Say, yeah.
So I alienated myself on purpose. And I removed myself from my immediate family, and I stopped making friends and developing and working on friendships and relationships.
Yes.
The second thing is your intuition, your gut feeling. That moment when you lay in bed at night and you feel that something's wrong, that it's not right, that it's not just staying for the kids. But when you say that, you have a sinking feeling, just to rise up to that and meet it and say, okay, maybe it's not just about the kids. Maybe I'm feeling something. I need to listen to my body, my intuition, my soul, my higher self is speaking to me. And 3, just the strength to not take it personally and feel the need to constantly justify my worth. I was having arguments every day trying to convince him, but I love you, but I cook for you, but I do the laundry, but I make your lunch, but I write notes, but I dress up for you. But look, I've lost 60 pounds, but look at your children. They're so beautiful and wonderful. And I bake pies for your mom, but look, why don't you love me? Ugh, I didn't love me. It was that simple. How could he? I stank of desperation.
Oh.
But that's what I would say. I'd say, take a shower, girl.
Oh.
Yes.
And it does start with self-love, right? Just honoring yourself first. And not a lot of women know how to do that, unfortunately. We don't know how to do that for ourselves.
And part of it is the anticipation and fear and judgment of others. Because if we didn't fear what our grandmothers or aunts or our sisters or brothers would say if we came to them, it's not having any expectations of how they're going to react. When we expect things of others, we're already trying to gauge how it's going to go. And so I just never talked about it. Yeah, and when I did make the decision to leave, everyone went, but he was such a nice guy. Are you sure? And I went, oh,
If only you knew.
But like you said, the cars, the house, the children, the image, it becomes your identity. And when I lost everything, I had no idea who I was.
And what I always say to people is sometimes psychological abuse is almost worse than physical abuse because you don't have the scars to show what you're going through in your marriage. If a man punches you and you get a black eye, you can say, this is what he did to me. When you don't have the evidence, you sometimes think you're being a little bit crazy as well, right? That you're being unreasonable. Maybe you haven't seen it properly. And then you stop trusting your intuition and the thing that tells you that something is not right here, something is off. Yeah.
I was physically abused by my father when I was younger and sexually abused. And what you said just hit home because I remember very few of the beatings, but I remember every nasty word. Every word of you were never wanted, you were not planned, you should have been a boy. You're overweight after, growing up, every hurtful thing, you're so stupid, you'll never amount to anything. Those words, like you said, those scars, you're constantly working on them, on not letting them define you. Whereas the beatings, it's kind of like that pain is gone.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That does make sense. So now let me teleport you into the future as my final question for you today. If time was an illusion, we talked about your past, we've talked about your present, and we can teleport into your future to the older you at the age of 100. And you're sitting in your rocking chair, watching your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. Based on how you're living your life right now, what would you say to that woman?
What would I say to my future self?
Mm-hmm.
Don't get caught up. Don't get caught up on what I've realized now is the things that I feel are the most important are the ones that turn out not to be.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I'm being more mindful and I'm really practicing that, I find that the things that I kind of turned my nose up to are the ones that are the most significant. Driving my youngest son to school in the morning, being in the rat race and being in a hurry, and it's kind of like wiggling through traffic and always looking at the time, trying to get there. I would say, how was your journey?
Yeah.
I feel like we're always moving towards a destination, and I would tell her, how does it feel now to just look back and just relax, just be in the moment, to just, have seen the world through the eyes of love, as opposed to expectation and condition and what it should be and who I should be and the roles that you play throughout your life, to just be.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your words of wisdom. It's such an absolute pleasure to have met you, and welcome again to our tribe. I'm excited to see what we're going to be doing together in the coming future. And I thank everybody who tuned in today. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, and that is the end of our online summit. The beautiful Emma coming to us all the way from Canada. Emma, thank you again for your contribution. I'm sad you couldn't be here with us, but we have your website scrolling at the bottom of the screen. So if anybody wants to get hold of Emma, she is helping women, people from all over the world through her processes. Selena, any feedback for Emma?
I mean, it's like when somebody relives your life, that you take so much time, somebody was cheating on you, and you find these, the bits and pieces to show that things were not right. And, it's so sad. But then it's the same, space. It's so empowering that, you take your power back You don't feel sorry for yourself anymore. You just feel enough is enough. If I can't do it, nobody can do it for me. So I have to do it for those beautiful children. And the same reason we just say, okay, I need to move on because of my children. And that's the power you get. And if you look back and say, wow, how did I do it? Now she's think, goodness me, this was powerful. Is it me? You know,
Yeah.
and in at the back of your mind, she just thinks, but that was amazing. I'm an amazing being. And that's what we feel. We feel empowered. We feel powerful. That at least I left the rat. I am now free. I'm independent. And
Yeah,
no
Eva has an
stress.
amazing
It
story.
was amazing.
Mhm.
So thank you so
Oh,
much for sharing.
we have come to the end of day 3 of our December online summit. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. Come back again tomorrow, same time. It will be 9 o'clock in New Zealand, 7 o'clock here in Melbourne. What time was it in the UK,
Eight
Selena, when
o'clock.
we started?
8 o'clock.
8 p.m. in the UK.
10
We
p.m. in Zimbabwe.
10 p.m. in
South Africa.
Zimbabwe. And thank you, Velvet, for tuning in there in Australia. Wonderful to have had you listening in and enjoying the beautiful stories that we had today.
Mm.
Goodbye, everybody. See you tomorrow, same time. Bye for now. Thank you, Selena.
Thank you.
Bye.